Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show once again. Glad to have you with us. We have a jam-packed show today. Gordy Chiesa to talk some NBA basketball. Jerem Jordan for a little red and blue. Josh Furlong, Utah insider, to talk about the fallout on the Hill as Craig Smith was separated from his head coaching duties just yesterday. In fact, during our show yesterday is when the news broke. We got a tank race update for you. Jeff Schwartz is going to join us at 1 o'clock, and then Jenna Johnson. That is a jam-packed show. Looking forward to all of those conversations.
I don't know if we booked enough guests today, OC.
Yeah, James is sick of hearing me talk, so he's just like, let me just get some guests on here.
No, Alonzo helped a little bit too, and it was just it was a combination of, we already, as our listeners know, we have Red and Blue every Tuesday. We have Gordy every Tuesday. And Jeff Schwartz, Tuesday was his regular day, and this happens to be Combine Week, and he's there. So combination of just our regular guests and the fact that we needed to get someone like Josh Furlong on, a Utes insider, to talk about the fallout from Craig Smith. Sometimes breaking news plans your show the next day, right, OC?
That's the idea. So, jam-packed show, and that means we've got to get all of our thoughts and opinions out now, right now. New NFL mock drafts are out. We could talk about some of those. You've got the potential Luka Doncic revenge game happening tonight. Lakers face the Mavericks for the first time since the trade. I'm trying to come up with a poll question, not a poll question, just a question on this. We're going over-under on what we think Luka is going to put up against the team that traded him away unceremoniously.
Bigger, how about this for a poll question? Bigger revenge game. Dalton Connect, Lakers revenge game. Dalton Connect versus the Hornets, or Luka Doncic versus the Mavs?
I think it's probably Luka. But I thought, okay, what are his season averages right now? And then what are his Lakers averages right now? And is he going to go over or under those? That's silly, because Luka Doncic right now is averaging 26.7 points per game this year, 8.2 rebounds, 7.5 assists, shooting 45%. Luka is going to go off tonight for 65 points.
Oh.
I'm trying to figure out a good over-under for Luka. I think probably the realistic one.
Let's put it at 65.
No, I think I'm going to put it at 39.5.
39.5, okay.
Does he score 40 against his old team?
That would be sweet.
He's going to try, and he plays with enough guys that are petty officer first class that would like to see him get a little bit of revenge.
Emphasis on the word petty in that title, too.
Correct. Petty, right? Pro athletes are petty. They are ego-driven. And his head coach, by the way, a former pro athlete who is just as petty as anyone else. 877-353-0700. That's what I'm doing. I'm setting it at 39.5 for Luka against the Mavericks tonight. So tell me at Real OC Sports on Twitter if you want to go over or under on that one. That's not where we're going to start the show today. We're throwing that out there for fun. Utah basketball is in need of a head coach. You know, I have to admit to you, I was a little bit taken aback, a little bit flummoxed as the news broke on the show yesterday. Didn't do a great job of organizing my thoughts, giving you the proper hot takes, because I like Craig Smith, because he was incredibly gracious and forthcoming and a great interview, and it's disarming when you're a media member to have a coach who seems like they actually want to talk to you and actually enjoy it. They give you access to the players. They tell you the truth as much as a coach is willing to tell you the truth. All these things weigh into the reaction of Craig Smith being gone. Everybody in this market likes Craig Smith. Being likable is not enough when, as the release from Utah Athletics came out, the standard is this is a school that wants to be a tournament team on a very regular basis. And that's where the expectation should be for the University of Utah. So now that it's time to turn the page and figure out what you're looking for in your next head coach, let's have that discussion. Let's talk about the low-hanging fruit. Let's talk about the home run hires. Let's talk about the easy. Let's talk about the hard. I want to start by saying Alex Jensen, I have it on very good authority. I made some phone calls as I was heading home yesterday in a beautiful, just a sun-soaked day yesterday. Gorgeous. Lovely. Hopefully everyone got to spend some time outside yesterday. And it looks like today's almost as good. So hopefully if you didn't get to yesterday, you get to today. But I'm making calls. I'm trying to #source some good information on where Utah is looking.
Being a journalist? Let's go.
Yeah, who they've talked to.
Big J.
Being a Big J journalist.
Sean
Breaking
O'Connell.
news. I tried for the first time. No, but, calling people I know that are well-connected up there and having conversations. And Alex Jensen is who the boosters want. It is who folks close to the program, decision makers, the sort of dyed-in-the-wool running Utes type people. It's who they want. My initial reaction in two of these separate conversations was like, yeah, but he's in the NBA. Guys don't want to leave the NBA. You know what I was told on both occasions? Not so fast, my friend.
Lee Corso was your source.
Lee Corso was my source on college basketball, specifically running Utes college basketball.
Not so fast, my friend.
And he was he was a little bit muffled. He's like, not so fast, my friend. I was like, Lee, are you wearing a mascot head right now?
Wearing Swoop's head.
Maybe I am. Is it Swoop? It wasn't Swoop. Anyway. But in both cases, two separate conversations, I was like, yeah, but, once you're in the NBA, you stay in the NBA. In NBA coaching circles, like Spence was talking about yesterday, Johnny Bryant is going to be an NBA head coach. There's no reason to believe that Alex Jensen doesn't get that opportunity at some point, although there is more sentiment around the idea that he's more of the perpetual assistant than a Johnny Bryant type character, right? So would Alex Jensen rather be the head coach at the University of Utah than an assistant coach in the NBA? Than roaming the bench for the Dallas Mavericks? Or any other NBA franchise for that matter, right? Because if it's not the Dallas Mavericks next year, he'll be with somebody. He's got a good reputation. He's known for player development. He's got relationships all over the league. Alex Jensen does not have to come to Salt Lake City to get a good job. He's going to have a great job in the NBA for as long as he wants.
You think about he was Quinn Snyder's lead assistant all 8 years here. He spent a year under Will Hardy, so that's two head coaches he knows very well. He spent the last this is the second year with the Mavs, so he's got that relationship with Jason Kidd. Dennis Lindsey is now with the Detroit Pistons in that front office, so he's got the relationship there. He's slowly his relationships have grown. He doesn't just have a couple of teams coming back here to coach the Jazz or staying with the Mavericks. He could go just about anywhere in the league. So you're right. His options are vast. It really comes down to, does he want to coach college and does he want to be at his alma mater?
So those are, I think, two separate questions, because the easy one to answer is, do you want to be at your alma mater? Yes. The answer is yes.
Almost everyone's going to say absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Especially now, and Alex Jensen has spent enough time in Salt Lake City recently to know, like, the basketball facilities there are absolutely first class. You get to walk through the cool little tunnel into the Huntsman. It's better than it was when he was a player. And the program is set up in a way that it wasn't set up even from a facility standpoint when this team was at its very, very best, right? He's definitely been in that head coach's office at the top of the building. There's nobody on earth who had a good experience in their college athletic career who, if they saw something like that, would not be like, wow, this would be cool, actually. To kick my feet up on this desk, which is probably something that head coaches never really do, is lean back on the chair and kick the feet up. But a view of the entire valley, everything the light touches is my kingdom, rooftop deck with the Traeger out there, all that stuff.
Thank you, Mufasa.
It is a wonderful facility. It is an awesome tradition. that he would, of course, be celebrated and admired if he could restore. So the easy answer is, do you want to coach your alma mater? The answer is yes, everybody does. Now, do you want to be a college basketball coach right now? That one is far more difficult to answer. You have to be willing to eat a you-know-what sandwich every single day as a college basketball coach. You have got to be able to humble yourself and your basketball knowledge enough to meet these 17-year-old kids where they're at, thinking they are the bee's knees and they deserve your type of money. You have to be willing, as a man who's been in the professional ranks, dealing with folks who are not much older than that, quite frankly, and are absurdly paid and probably have some of the same issues and some of the same good qualities. But you've been doing it in a professional environment that does not require you to re-recruit players, does not require you to basically sign 6-month contracts with all these people. Because in the NBA, your contract actually means something. It locks you down. It ties you in. There are structures in place. Alex Jensen is not working in the front office, but he knows if this person's performance is commensurate with their salary, what that means for the team, what that means for the rotation. And he knows how long he has as an assistant coach on that staff to get that guy, if he needs to get that guy up to a commensurate performance, to get that guy to, you're making $28 million and you're playing like someone who's a $10 million player. We've got to close that gap. The difference being when you try to do that in college, instead of being like, hey, you got 4 years to get this thing figured out, dude. We have got to make this work for you in a Dallas Mavericks uniform, in a Utah Jazz uniform, in a Detroit Pistons uniform, in a whatever team you think Alex Jensen ends up with. Instead of that, you have to say, hey, you have 6 months to get from point A to point B in your Utah running Utes uniform before we have to have a conversation about whether or not you're transferring. You're going to talk to me about whether you're happy. I'm going to talk to you about whether we're happy. It's a transient world in college basketball. It's a transient world in pro sports too, but in college sports right now, it is far more fluid, far more dynamic. The sands are shifting at a much more rapid pace in college basketball than in NBA basketball. So that's the tougher question to answer. What is going to incentivize me to leave an NBA job where I've kind of figured out how it works now? I've been in the NBA ranks, if I'm Alex Jensen, for a pretty long time. And even though I haven't gotten my head coaching opportunity yet, maybe I figured I don't need that. Maybe I figured that it's coming in 2 years, 3 years. Maybe I have some type of timeline, some type of plan. And now the possibility of going back to my alma mater, as alluring as that is, I'm not going back to a system that I was a player in. I'm not going back to a program that I helped establish as one of the best in the country. I'm going back to a place that is in desperate need of an overhaul, of a facelift, and I have to do that against the backdrop of an athletic department that is being criticized for not producing enough NIL opportunities for the basketball players. I have to convince 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds that I can be the guy that brings us back to the NCAA tournament with regularity, that I can, in a Utah uniform, get them NBA opportunities. I can point to Andrew Bogut's jersey on the wall and say, that guy was the number 1 pick. You can be that from here. Do I want to take that on if I'm somebody like Alex Jensen? That is a much harder question to answer. Hopefully we get an opportunity to actually have him on the show, talk about it. Hopefully, more importantly, Mark Harlan and company are having those conversations with him right now, today, as we speak, and answering those questions in a satisfactory manner. Because this would be the home run hire. Alex Jensen would be the guy that you can look at your fans and say, we're bringing you back to the glory days, but we're also doing it by bridging the gap between Utah basketball and the NBA, recent history of the NBA. We're building the bridge all the way back to the Majerus era. And we're bringing in a guy who knows the modern concern of NBA basketball. I don't know if he's a good recruiter. I don't think any of us know that. But you can look at your fan base and you can say, we heard what you were asking for. We know you have this nostalgic pull to try to get somebody like Alex Jensen back in this building. He totally understands the landscape here. He knows that Utah is a unique place culturally. He's been part of that culture. He was a Viewmont High School guy, right? He knows how good the local basketball is. He's not going to completely ignore in-state recruits, but he's also not deluded in thinking that this is the only place that you can build a successful roster. So assuming that his universally positive reputation in the NBA also translates down to college coaches, high school coaches, he's going to be able to recruit, I think. You get to tell your boosters, we listen to you. You get to tell your NIL donors, we know that you wanted this. You wanted this guy. This is a name you knew. This is a face that you were familiar with. And we went out and we got that guy. So now can we have another $1 million? Because that's half the battle. Alex Jensen is not just going to have to convince players to come here. He's going to have to convince boosters, donors, the average fan that shows up to the fan fest and buys the merchandise. Hey, it is worth your investment in Utah basketball. You've got to keep us closer to the competition. And Mark Harlan made it a point in his statement yesterday to say, hey, we continue to invest in basketball. We continue to invest to hire more staff. Do you know why he said that in the statement about Craig Smith being fired? Because people question it. Yeah. Because people wonder if there was a universally accepted truth that Utah basketball is fully supported financially. The university has invested enough money in the NIL program at Utah basketball. They're on par with the Big 12 opponents in terms of staff support, facilities. That one, definitely you check that box. That's why you didn't have to mention the facility. The reason Mark Harlan put that the last sentence is that they wish Craig Smith and his family the best, which is appropriate. The second to last sentences in that statement were not about Craig Smith at all. They were about what Utah is doing to support Utah basketball. That was put in there because there are people, some of them powerful, some of them influential, some of them just random yahoos that are listening to my radio show right now, some of them that are hosting radio shows right now, that don't get to see the financial reports, don't have the spreadsheets in front of them to let you know one way or another whether or not Utah basketball is poised financially to elevate itself, regardless of who the coach is. That's why you put that statement in there. You have to answer that question. You have to answer that question for Alex Jensen, for Andre Miller, for fill in the blank on whatever other coach that you're enamored with right now. And you have to be able to tell them, yes, we are ready to support you financially. And, of course, the boosters are in control of way too much. The puppet strings of athletic departments right now, what's the puppeteer, right?
Yeah.
Is that a good visual for you? The puppeteers.
Marionette.
Not in a nefarious way, but we just had that big discussion yesterday while this news was breaking about how BYU football had to call all their players in and just be like, guys, we're actually not going to be able to pay you what you think you're going to get paid.
You didn't win enough, was
in 2023.
Some of the players said.
You didn't really win that much, and it's not my job to make sure you can pay the rent. It's your job to perform. And, look how ugly that can get. Again, that was at BYU. That's not at Utah. But it's not hard when you're reading things about any college program, much less one that's in state 40 miles away, to think about, is this what's happening with Utah basketball? Are people at Utah basketball going to be able to say, you know what, you're a top-level recruit, you're worth $500,000 a year, and we're happy to write that check for you if you can commit to play for Alex Jensen, if you can commit to play for Utah basketball, if you can commit to play for whoever it is. And the chicken and the egg, that's a good argument to have. Is the money what draws you here as a coach? Is the money what draws you here as a player? Is it a side effect? Is it a strong enough side effect that you're going to stay even if the money is not as flush as you hoped it would be? These are all things that have to be addressed, and Mark Harlan did a good job in his statement of addressing those things and saying we continue to be invested. That is a message to coaching candidates. That is a message to you as the fans. That is a message to the boosters. That is a message to potential players. That is a message to everybody that, yes, we are going to do what we have to do on the greenbacks front to make this program what you hope it will be. I put a poll question out, who you want. If you're in charge, who are you looking to hire? What are you looking for? Who are you trying to get? A rising young head coach. We know how this looks. You find somebody who's at Samford. You find somebody who's coaching at, I don't know, Louisiana Tech. And you're just like, okay, we're going to give you more money, better resources. Presumably, that'll give you access to better players. And now you give us wins. Do you want an assistant from a great and established program? This is the Arizona model, the Tommy Lloyd situation. They went in, and that was the Arizona job. That is like a West Coast blue blood-ish, right? Big-time program. More invested, Arizona more invested in basketball than in football. And they went in, and they could have had their pick. And by the way, a lot of the Arizona boosters and alum, what did they want? They wanted a Wildcat. They wanted somebody who had ties to the program.
Isn't that always doesn't that always seem to be, when I remember for the longest time, and they still kind of talk this way for Michigan football, we want a Michigan man.
Yes.
And it's like, no matter how big your program is, no matter how much tradition you have and how you could, like Arizona and Michigan, using those two as an example, they ought to be able to feel like they could get anybody to come there, but yet we always want to the school Wildcat. We want it's in the not that it's completely wrong mindset. It's just they always go.
At Arizona, they had to. I was doing Pac-12 radio at this time. They had to go and they had to talk to the boosters and the donors, and they had to say, "We know you want somebody who wore this uniform, but we're going to give you who we think is the best coach available to us in America. We're going to get Tommy Lloyd, who's been a huge part of Gonzaga building itself from a tiny little program into a national powerhouse." And they hired Tommy Lloyd, and the results have been mixed. They have not won a national championship. But that's the model that Utah could look at and potentially want to follow. An assistant from a great program. I put Alex Jensen or bust because so many people want Alex Jensen, and I know that, and people that matter, people whose voices are listened to on the Hill want Alex Jensen. 75% of the results coming in right now say Alex Jensen or bust. And the other category, this is my bad, grievance with myself for constructing this thing poorly, because Andre Miller is the other answer people want.
Yeah, the only comments were pictures of Andre Miller. Yeah.
And Andre Miller right now is a head coach in the G League. And the Grand Rapids Gold, which is James' second favorite G League team.
Absolutely. Nuggets affiliate, I believe.
Right now, he's 10-12. His team is 10-12. I actually don't believe he has a winning record so far as a G League head coach, but that's not
rules him out. We don't want him. He doesn't even have a winning record.
That's not to cast aspersions on Andre Miller's ability to coach. Also, here's the thing. Why not both? Because Andre Miller expressed interest in being an assistant coach at the University of Utah last year. Alex Jensen and Andre Miller know each other quite well. These guys could be on a staff together. Why not both?
Yeah. Why can't it be both?
James, by the way, how deep is your knowledge of the G League?
It's the deepest of anyone in the world. No, I don't know a ton about the G League.
We're going to play a game at some point. When tournament time comes around, we do an obscure mascot challenge.
Oh.
We could do that with the G League as well.
Okay. Do I get to study a little bit?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, yeah.
That ruins the fun for the
You're
obscure
right.
mascot
You're
challenge.
right. You're right. Yeah, I can think
Or
of.
maybe we'll do a real name or fake name.
Oh, yes, real name or fake name would be, because I think it'd be pretty boring. You say the team in Charlotte, and then just me not answering.
Yeah.
So maybe real name or fake name.
Real name or fake name, James? Delaware Bluecoats.
Well, that's real.
That's real.
Yeah,
They got some good ones.
Blue Coats.
Real name or fake name, James? The Birmingham Red Tails.
Fake.
Very good. They're the Birmingham Squadron.
Squadron.
See, I tried to trick you.
You did. I'm like, Red Tails, that's real.
It's a great name for a team. That's what Washington, the football club, should have done
been.
instead of Commanders.
Yes.
Anyway, we got to take a break.
No, yeah, that's a good tease. We'll do that closer to the tournament. Real name or fake name?
Real name, fake name, and we'll do the obscure mascot challenge on collegiate teams when the brackets get revealed, because it's one of my favorite things to do.
Always fun.
And you could throw it back on me, too. It won't just be me doing it to you.
Okay. Love it.
We'll do it when Zach's in here one day, because there's no way he gets any obscure mascot.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He'd get 0 out of 0. Would Alonzo be good? I think Alonzo would also be bad.
Yeah, I don't think Alonzo gets it either. Now, minor league baseball teams?
Yeah, he could.
That's what we're going to have to do with Alonzo.
He could give us some minor league baseball teams. Real name, fake name for G League with James. Real name, fake name, minor league baseball with Alonzo. I bet Gordy Chiesa knows all of the G League teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, he probably knows every single college mascot as well. So we're not playing that game with Gordy Chiesa, but he is going to join us next. We'll talk about all things going on, the Utah Jazz failing to tank aggressively, and, of course, the Luka revenge game potentially tonight. All of that and more with Gordy Chiesa next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.
Inbound to Keontae, twirling three, got it!
Beautiful.
We still got it! Key needs a three. Rises for it. Hits it!
Keontae George had a couple of those clutch threes to keep the Jazz in the game in the final seconds. 114-112 against the Portland Trailblazers. Oh, so close. That's the right thing to do, though. That sound courtesy of Smith Entertainment Group. And David Locke, Thurl Bailey on the calls, of course. Gordy Chiesa swings by to talk a little hoop, as he is wont to do on a Tuesday and Thursday here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Gordy, how are you?
Sean, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Gordy, before I get to anything NBA related, although this is somewhat NBA related, Alex Jensen, mentioned by a lot of people as the hopeful replacement for Craig Smith, somebody that everyone on the Hill might love to see taking over for Craig Smith. How well do you know Alex Jensen?
Very well, absolutely. And I know him personally when he played for Rick Majerus, and then when I worked for the NBA as a coaching mentor. Alex was one of our coaches when he coached the championship. Was Coach of the Year for the G League team with the Cavaliers. So I know him. I've seen him in practice. He was a tremendous player, overachiever, and now in the NBA as a winning assistant coach. Very impressive. So with Alex Jensen, so the question the youths have to ask themselves, they need a turnaround artist. In other words, they're in a tremendous league, and their next door neighbor, BYU, has it rolling right now as far as recruiting. Kevin Young, former also NBA assistant coach, is doing a tremendous job with BYU, very similar to Mark Polk did previously. All right, so what Alex Jensen would give to the youths, he give them a chance to recruit in the portal. You've got to understand is you've got to understand the portal, how you're recruiting, and also with youth success over the years, you've got to go out of the country. You've got to go to Australia, New Zealand, Lithuania, Nigeria to try to get some of those kids that want to come to the States to play and convince them to play for Utah at university. Next point about this is that the style of play. What you want to do is invigorate the fan base by not shooting reckless threes, but play an open style of play, which Alex would do with his playing in the NBA. You want to connect the fan base also. The fan base a little bit slow right now. They're a little bit down, so you've got to connect them, and he would. And then you've got to develop this edginess and this toughness about your program, which Alex Jensen had as a player. And when you play for Rick Majerus and you work for him at St. Louis University, and now you're in a big, bad NBA, you have a little bit of edginess about yourself, very similar to Kevin Young. He has that confidence and edginess. The other day when BYU beat Arizona on the road, I know it was a tough call. Yes, maybe no, they got it in the road. But the fact of the matter is that it's tough to win at Arizona. And so what Alex Jensen-type people, what they would do, they've got to develop a toughness about yourself and edginess to win those close road games. And the last point about this is that you've got to win the in-state battle and recruiting. So you've got to recruit the portal, you have to recruit internationally, and you've got to win the battle in the BI state. You can't let BYU get the best players over Utah because historically it's the other way around. He'd be an excellent choice because he knows how to win, and he got his own toughness about himself. And that's the catchword. The grittiness you need to win on the road.
Gordy, how many NBA coaches, how many guys who've already, kind of broken that seal and gotten into the pro game are willing to consider going back to college basketball, especially in the current landscape like you're talking about with transfer portal, the importance of getting international guys, NIL matters, and that's not something they had to deal with when they were players. I've always viewed it, and this is probably reductive, but just like if you could be a coach at the highest level of your sport, that's the highest level. You've won. You've made it. If you're coaching in the NBA, whether you're a head coach or an assistant, it doesn't get any bigger or better than that. So how many NBA assistants, Alex Jensen, of course, being one of them, would consider going back down to the college level, if going back down is the right way to characterize it, I guess?
I think that at age 49, he would. In other words, when they hired Craig Smith, he was, quote, involved also in the discussion. I'm not sure if he was offered the job or not, but he was involved in the discussion. Let's fast forward 4 years later. As always, the landscape's different. Oh, by the way, the Dallas Mavericks with Luka going to the Lakers, and it's possible that Kyrie Irving could opt out and move on. And so you're Alex Jensen sitting here at age 49. That's the catchword here. 49 is that do you want to have your own shop as far as coaching it, or do you want to be an assistant for a team that's disarray slightly? Despite Jason Kidd, who's been the Rock of Gibraltar, they could be faltering. And so that's the question you have to ask yourself philosophically. Do I want to be a head coach myself at age 49 or keep being an assistant? So we don't know that answer, you and I, Sean, until it makes that decision made either for him or in a different direction.
All right, Gordy, let's shift our focus to the Utah Jazz. Gordy Chiesa, of course, joining me here on a Tuesday on the Sean O'Connell Show. Keontae George having a little moment after this All-Star break. Did the break and his participation in the All-Star Rising Stars situation, did it give him the confidence we're seeing manifest itself on the court right now?
No. It's been Isaiah Collier as the point guard. No, so now he's playing his natural position as far as off the bench, give me the ball. I have talent, which you always had, but in your role is adjusted now. So when he played previously, he was a point guard with the element of shooting. Now Collier is the point guard, and now he's all out shooting. And that's his role, and he so far is excelling at it. And so he's able to regroup himself as far as mentally. Yeah, I agree, during the All-Star break, but the fact of the matter is that he's playing in harmony with Isaiah Collier. Now, last night's game was interesting. He couldn't make a shot. He shot 6 of 22 during the game. However, and this is the catchword again, however, is that he made those two big ones late in the game, and the last one he missed with a contested three. So I love him in the role. He probably is going to assume the role, I think, eventually of Jordan Clarkson coming in the game as a six-man offensive spark, and he's very good at it. He's the right mentality. He's fearless in a good way.
We've got a revenge game potentially tonight as Luka Doncic takes on the Dallas Mavericks for the first time since being traded and obviously wearing a Lakers uniform. What do you expect his performance to look like?
Tremendous. Absolutely. Is that he'll be ready to roll. He's ready to play right now. This play against his former team. When you get traded by your team, even though you say the right things when it happens, when you play against those guys for the first one or two times, or in a playoff series, you want to prove to them that, oh, by the way, you forgot how good I was. And so look at Doncic. He'll be ready for the task tonight. And for the Lakers' point of view, from a team concept, is that they need to win. And so as we speak right now, the Mavs are in 8th seed, 31 and 27, and the Lakers are in the 4th seed right now, 34 and 21. It's quick math about Luka Doncic. He's only played 4 games for the Lakers. He's averaging 19 points a game for the Lakers. He's shooting only 38.8% from the field, 27.3, 7.5 rebounds, and 5.8 assists. However, the last game was a breakout game where he had 32 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals on a very impressive road victory over Denver. So each game will get better and be more comfortable, and he's going to be in harmony with LeBron James on the court. They need both guys to perform at a high level for the Lakers to win. So revenge game is going to be, I expect the Lakers to knock them out.
When we see Luka kind of rounding into form for the Lakers, someone of his caliber and surrounded by the type of players he's surrounded by and the coach that he's got, how long until you see him like all the way back to his averages, his actual ability?
April 1st, give him another, like, say, 12 games to get used to playing with his teammates. And a lot of times it's also his passing skills. You know, a guy makes the cut to the basket and he's late delivery versus on time, on target. So just a question of just keep playing with your floor mates, and you play in sync, and you link together your skills with the catching ability of your teammates going to the basket. Now, Luka, the way he plays, is a risk taker. That's why he's tremendous. So is LeBron also. And so now the question is, as always, is that what's the risk reward as far as some of your passes or some of your shot attempts? He'll figure it out. The Lakers are committed, to say the least, to both guys. And I'm impressed with the Lakers did during the trading deadline. And they're trending in the right direction. There'll be a tough out. If the playoffs started today, the Lakers would play the Rockets in the first round. And then they would play the winner of Denver and the play-in tournament winner. Would just say it was the T-Wolves. So Lakers would play the winner of Denver and the T-Wolves in the second round. So we shall see. It's interesting. And the playoffs are relatively soon. The Jazz and Jazz basketball, they have 25 games the Jazz do. Most teams have the exact same amount of games, 24, 20, 23, 26, based on the schedule. So there's definitely a finish line. It's relatively soon. And the teams that are going to the playoffs are fighting for a position. They know it, that every game does matter.
Gordy, Greg Popovich not expected to return this year, still recovering from a mild stroke, and obviously the Spurs are now without Victor Wembanyama because of the shoulder issue. What do you do as a franchise if your best player and your head coach are no longer available for the rest of the year?
What you do is that you keep teaching fundamentals, and you know that probably they're heading to the lottery again. Probably. And so they didn't expect to do that, but the way it played out. By the way, NBA basketball, professional football, things never work out the way you think it's going to work out in the off season. In other words, when you have those meetings in the summertime, if we do this, this, and this, we think we can win the title. Oh, by the way, it's who you play against. And so that's the Spurs right now. If the Spurs don't make the playoffs, which I think they're not going to make it, it'll be now 6 years now making the playoffs. The Spurs, the model franchise, and let's remember right now is that the Spurs are a championship type organization, and so what they do right now is they just keep developing their young guys, which means that De'Aaron Fox now is going to be one of the main guys. And we'll see how he can lead his team to some victories in the next 25 games.
Gordy, what's the list today?
List today, and it's right on point about the San Antonio Spurs, and with De'Aaron Fox, and also with Chris Paul, who turns 40 years young on May 6th. The list today is the all-time regular season career steal leaders. Steal leaders. Yes, Sean O'Connor. Thievery is illegal in basketball. His 5 prerequisites of pass or dribble stealing. 1, you need instincts. 2, early eyes. 3, positioning. 4, timing. And 5, quick footwork burst. And that's the 5 things you need to steal the ball. Here's the top 10 of all time. Number 10, Hakeem Olajuwon, 2,162 steals. He's in the Hall of Fame. And the quick thing about Olajuwon, I call it alligator arms. His arms are really were so long, and that he's the greatest ball stealer of any big man in the history of basketball. So the other 9 guys on this list are all basically guards, small forwards. Olajuwon is a center. Number 9 all time, Clyde Drexler, also in the Hall of Fame, 2,207 steals. Number 8, Scottie Pippen, Hall of Fame, 2,307. Number 7, Maurice Cheeks, Hall of Fame, 2,310 steals. Number 6, he plays for the Lakers as we speak right now. He's heading to the Hall of Fame. He's either the greatest player of all time or the second greatest player of all time, LeBron James, 6th all time, 2,321 steals. Number 5, Gary Payton, Hall of Fame, 2,445 steals. And Sean, I call this cookie jar steals because he used to be an unbelievable ball hawk, and he would steal the ball off the dribble, thus people sometimes, people like James Peterson, Sean, they have cookie jar steals where they steal cookies out of the jar. Number 4, Michael Jordan, Hall of Fame, 2005-14. Number 3, on point also, I mentioned a few minutes ago, Jason Kidd, third all-time Hall of Famer, 2006-84. Number 2, Chris Paul of all time, future Hall of Famer, 2006-887. And number 1, all-time leader in steals, also by assists, Utah Jazz owned John Stockton, Hall of Famer. John had 3,265 steals in his career, which is number 1. So just think about John Stockton. He's number 1 in 2 categories, all-time assist leader and all-time leader in steals. His left point, what about Jazz basketball? Karl Malone, this physical specimen of a person, Karl's 12th all-time in steals. You don't realize how great Karl was as far as stealing the ball. He used to get these ball strips playing post defense, and he was absolutely a robber when he stole the ball versus in the double teams, where he double teamed and trapped the player in offense. He come out of the pack with the ball. Thus, that's my list today, Sean. Burglary is legal and thievery in America.
I'll tell you what, I'm a terrible basketball player, but one thing I was decent at, stealing the ball.
Yes. Early eyes, quick burst.
You know what I mean? Can't shoot to save my life, but I'll make a hustle play, and I will annoy you by stealing the ball from you, all right? So anyone needs a little help on their church ball squad defensively, holler at me, 877-353-0700. Gordy, you're the man. Thanks for your time as always.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out. Stay well.
All right, Hot Lunch is coming next. J.J. Watt made a bet that might actually pull him out of retirement. I'll tell you what the bet was and who he made it with, not who you would expect. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Hot lunch here on the Sean O'Connell Show, which is brought to you today and every day by our friends at Les Schwab Tires. Accessories, wheels, tires, whatever you need for your car and whatever it is you drive, they've got it for you. The pros there will get the job done right the first time. So go to Les Schwab, tell them OC sent you. All right, Combine getting rolling. Yesterday they arrived. Today, all position groups starting to filter in. We're going to talk a little Combine with Jeff Schwartz, who's joining us in our 1 o'clock hour. This is not a football headline that I expected to see today. J.J. Watt potentially eyeing a return to the NFL. Did you see this, James?
I did, and it's a football headline in two ways.
It is. It's a football headline and it's a football headline.
It's a footy and a football headline.
So, owning a minority stake in professional franchises is very much a cool guy thing to do, right? The Ryan Reynolds thing. Obviously, LeBron has his hands in some ownership groups, et cetera. Dwayne Wade, he's got his hands on the Utah Jazz as a minority owner. Burnley FC, an English football club, soccer club. J.J. Watt is part of that ownership group. And he made a, I think, facetious bet with the goalkeeper. Do you call them keepers, tenders? I know that in hockey you're not supposed to call them one thing, and in soccer you're not supposed to call them one thing. I always get them mixed up.
I think goalkeeper is more of a soccer term. But
Okay.
Soccer fans, text us if we're wrong, because I'm not a huge soccer fan.
The goaltender, the keeper.
So is the hockey, is it goaltender?
I think it's a goaltender.
Okay,
in
yeah.
hockey.
Okay.
And a goalkeeper, and that makes sense.
Or keeper
because,
for short. They say keeper a lot in soccer too.
And tender, I think, more in hockey. And like it makes more sense because a tender seems like that's something that would be smaller, and a keeper would be something that would be larger.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how I'm going to remember. You keep the large things, you tend to the small things.
I love it.
Okay, that's my mnemonic device. Anyway, J.J. Watt made a bet like, hey, apparently the goalkeeper for Burnley is a big Cincinnati Bengals fan. And J.J. was like, if you don't give up any more goals this season, I will come out of retirement and play for the Cincinnati Bengals. And, of course, this British chap said, bet, let's go. 13 clean sheets in a row now for Burnley. The second longest streak behind only Man U, I think, ever in the Premiership. So
shouts to James Trafford. That's the keeper's name.
James Trafford, which is very much a British name.
I can hear you in your stuffy old man British.
James Trafford.
Yes, exactly.
Trafford turns in another clean sheet, and J.J. Watt will play for the Bengals.
When I looked this up, I didn't know. Surprise! I didn't know the name of Burnley's goalkeeper off the top of my head.
Embarrassing
But when I looked up the story, to just get a little more familiar with it, I saw that they refer to his conversation with Trafford hasn't given up a goal, and I'm thinking, wait, he doesn't own Trafford FC. He owns Burnley FC. I'm like, to me, that sounded like the name of the club, and then anyway, I'm like, oh, Trafford's the goalkeeper.
And fun fact, fun connection here. Trafford, this goalkeeper Trafford, the Manchester United Stadium is called Old Trafford.
That's right. That's why I was thinking it's the name of a club or something.
It's named after this guy's great-grandfather.
Oh, wow.
Just kidding. I don't know if that's true. But
you got me.
It's very British, right? It just sounds Old Trafford. So this guy made a bet with J.J. Watt, and J.J. Watt is now like, it's funny because he does a good job on social media. He's like posting that he's house hunting in Cincinnati, and that he's going back to the gym and stuff. J.J. Watt, honorary Utah, by the way. Do we give him that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he married a gal from Alta High School.
Is there you say Kalia Watt?
That's right.
Kalia Watt, soccer player.
Yeah.
She was on and she may still be on the women's national team, but she at least at one point was a women's national team member.
So is J.J. Watt an honorary Utah?
Yeah, absolutely. He tried to buy RSL. He and Kalia tried to buy RSL before Dave Blitzer came in. So I think if you marry into the Utah family, if you will, and then you try to buy one of the teams, you make an effort to be a big part of the sports landscape or otherwise, yeah, you're an honorary Utah.
JJ, just be a regular Utah and buy like a couple of swig franchises.
I'm
okay?
sure. Yeah.
Too much of a flex.
I'm sure they've got a house here too.
Just get a couple of swig franchises and let people take photos with you at Shields or something. All right, just be a regular Utah guy.
That's when you officially become a regular Utah.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
Anyway, I love bets like this. Obviously, he would have to put up 20-plus shutout games, Mr. Trafford would. Now, here's the loophole, though. If he gets injured and doesn't concede any goals, does JJ still have to pay up on the bet? Because you still have to pay up on contracts if somebody gets injured. It's not their fault. It's not his fault if he gets hurt.
Do you think he tries to get hurt?
No.
If after one more clean sheet.
Dives into the post. He's like, I'm sorry, can't play anymore. Broke my collarbone. You have to go play for the Cincinnati Bengals. He probably cares less about the Bengals and JJ playing for them than he does about his own team's success.
You would hope so.
You would hope so.
You would hope so. JJ would hope so too.
I love this though. I hope that it gets really like they really have to sweat it out. I hope he gets to like 19 in a row before he ends up conceding.
Absolutely.
Or doesn't concede.
I might
at all.
actually I don't watch EPL. I might actually tune into EPL for that.
I'll start watching Burnley if it's going to bring. And by the way, the Bengals could use a little pass rush help, right? Because opposite Henderson,
they could use any help on the defense. But
so?
Pass rush is sure.
Not the worst thing if you get J.J. Watt out of retirement. He's only like 37.
Yeah.
He could still play. Calais Campbell is like 40 and he's still playing. J.J. could do it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You see him in those Peloton commercials where he's racing his brother and trying to beat his brother. He's staying in shape. He's trying to beat TJ still.
I don't know where Burnley's at in the standings or anything. I should have looked that up. But
Sorry, table, OC.
Oh.
On the table.
Right.
Yeah, come on now. You also said shutout after you astutely said clean sheets. Like, come on.
You can't.
Come on.
They're not interchangeable. You have to use.
I don't know.
Like I have to say, JJ Watt lacing up the boots again for Cincinnati. Like, you can call them cleats, guys. It's okay. Let's see. I'm looking at standings right here. Leeds United. And then Sheffield United, and then Burnley. Oh, Burnley's in the championship. They're not in the Premiership.
Oh, they're okay.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, who cares? I'm definitely not watching that.
Yeah. Sorry, Burnley. I got to do some more research on these
thought
guys.
they were. I thought that they might have been in one of the lower division.
No, I'm not even impressed that you own them, JJ. Get those swig franchises.
I could own them.
I could easily buy Burnley. No problem. All right, we got to take a break. Little red and blue next. We get to the jam-packed guest portion of the show. Jerem Jordan, then Josh Furlong, then Jeff Schwartz at 1 o'clock, and Jenna Johnson at 1:30. So don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Shout out James Peterson for the Red and Blue Open. Especially that part that makes me chuckle every time. They've done absolutely nothing wrong, but they're blue. Time for some Red and Blue. Jerem Jordan, our BYU insider from BYU Sports Nation. Good friend of the show at this point. One of the great friends of the show at this point. Jerem, welcome. How are you?
Hey, I'm okay. I'm battling through a cold, which affects my job with the voice. But other than that, life is good. How about them Cougs? And what? Craig Smith mid-season? What is that? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, we've been talking about that these end of the show yesterday and start of the show today. What's the BYU reaction? What's the Jerem Jordan reaction to Craig Smith, former Utah State head man, now former Utah head man, with 4 games left in the regular season?
A couple thoughts. One, I don't get the timing at all. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you beat Kansas at home and Kansas State, and you lose a close one in UCF, and now's the time. Like, clearly this was in the works before that, which is weird. And would you pull the trigger midseason if you didn't feel like you had the next guy lined up, whether that be a former player in Andre Miller, Alex Jensen, or whoever? I don't know. It feels a little odd. I did chuckle at a tweet that said Kevin Young will never beat Craig Smith at Utah, which made me laugh and get instantly upset.
Accurate.
But, yeah, right? I don't understand the timing whatsoever. Obviously, there are things that need to be done to get the program in a certain direction. There's a rich history, and there's pressure when the rival is sort of mounting in NIL, and you don't feel like you have enough NIL, or like BYU football when Utah's winning Pac-12 titles. Like, okay, how do we raise our game to compete in recruiting there? Like, I get it. You kind of bounce off each other a little bit there, but man, weird timing. I would have waited till the end of the year or closer to the end of the year. Like, we still have a few more weeks left. I don't get it.
All right, I want to get to BYU basketball, but actually, when the Craig Smith news broke yesterday, I was ranting about a Salt Lake Tribune article that has a lot more to do with BYU than anything. I'm sure you've seen this. The reports out there, and a couple of BYU players were really the ones who were bringing this to everyone's attention and had their axe to grind, that apparently the BYU collective, the NIL situation at BYU for football specifically, prior to this incredible season that they finished under Kalani Sitake, got a little bit dicey, and players' compensation was changed and reduced in most cases, and it felt like kind of this whistleblower type situation going on. And of course, the timing of that, we're just talking about the timing of Craig Smith, the timing of that being revealed now was pretty interesting because, I mean, BYU football is trending in the right direction and did all year, despite this apparently going on in the background. What were your thoughts on the Salt Lake Tribune article calling out the Royal Blue Collective down there, and apparently, miscommunications abounding?
Frankly, I don't have a lot of comments about it. From what I know, BYU's done a good job in NIL situations, football, basketball. They're trying their best in Olympic sports, and if there are a few dudes that have spoken out, that's their call. I know Raider Demooney weighed in yesterday. He felt like it wasn't fair on Twitter, but that's all I really have to say about that, frankly.
All right, fair enough. I was yelling about it because it just doesn't make sense. I'm not trying to get you to say something you're not supposed to say or not comfortable saying, but if any of that were true, if even one or two players were having a hard time with the way that their bank account looked, it did not manifest itself on the football field. Team chemistry seemed like it was incredibly tight. Kalani Sitake was leading this program in the right direction and to a bunch of wins that people preseason did not think they would get. Does it say anything about him or his leadership if he's able to navigate discontent, even among like a starter or two, a player or two, to that level of success?
Yeah, I think if you're playing football at BYU, Kalani Sitake has said it before. He said you still need to understand how to manage your finances, and you need to understand where the value menus are at fast food places. Like even if you're a star player, like certainly you go to Power 4 school for certain opportunities, whether that be, and that depends on what each guy wants, right? NIL, or I want to get to the NFL, or I want to win, or whatnot. like for BYU and Utah, it feels like you can have all of that experience. And at BYU, they feel like they can offer a spiritual element as well, if that's what you're up for, in a holistic sort of approach. The team, in spite of what may have been reported, kind of had an unbelievable year despite it. And I think in this NIL era, like, there's always going to be a couple of instances, it feels like, where someone felt like they were worth more, or, hey, this or that payment was late. Like, I don't feel like it's going to be 100% clean. Like any business that's run, it's not just like all amazing all the time, clean. Like there's just stuff that happens, and you fight through it, and you work together, and you overcome. And I think BYU did a great job of doing that this last year, especially on the field. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on off the field that doesn't get mentioned for most football programs.
And look, it's not unique to BYU that there have been disgruntled employees, so to speak, in college football since the beginning of time. Now, before, it was related to things like reps and playing time and the depth charts and whether you're on the travel squad or not. Now, in the recent history, we've introduced this financial element to it and paychecks, and hey, that freshman is making money and I'm not, and he's not on the travel squad and I am. Like all of this, and this is, again, not just a BYU thing. This, I think, is a little snapshot of what college coaches have to be prepared to deal with. And when you're making a decision on who to hire for your basketball program, like Utah's got to do, or for your football team, a coordinator or a coach or whomever, they have to be ready to deal with this as well, I suppose.
Absolutely. That's why Kevin Young, he's been saying, like, I don't know what it was before. All I know is what it was in the NBA for me and what it is now, and it's more NBA than it was college before. You've seen a couple of guys retire suddenly in the college game in various sports just because, like, they just don't want to deal with it. And so, yeah, it's a different era. Like, every team needs a GM. Like, if you don't have one, you got to get one. And BYU football hired one in the offseason. BYU basketball essentially hired one, and Doug Stewart, who played at Brown, used to be at Nevada as an administrator, played for the Washington Generals, actually. So, yeah, you just have these guys that need to manage stuff. Plus, just managing the roster of BYU with, like, return missionaries. I know Utah has that too, but, like, it's just a lot to take in. So it's semi-pro. And you might as well call it – it's not straight-up pro, but it's as close to that as it's ever been.
I mean, that's how I've always characterized it. It's kind of professional. And then I see some of these articles, and it's like, well, this is the starting salary, and this is the backup salary. I was like, oh, that's not semi-pro stuff. That's like real pro stuff, if that's how it's being organized. And I don't know if it is or not, but if that's how it's being organized at programs, it is professional sport.
College football is big time, right? College basketball is getting that direction with some of the big name players and certain programs, and obviously BYU's donors doing a tremendous job with trying to get BYU competitive in that space. I had an assistant coach a couple of years ago from BYU tell me, hey, we could buy like an NCAA tournament team. We could buy a Final Four team. There's a certain like element of like, we need to get good players here, and then our job to chemistry, systems, techniques, development, like, and so on and so forth. And I thought that was interesting. Like, it takes a certain amount of NIL to compete at a certain level. You can always overachieve. You can always be that, random mid-major that makes a run. You're St. Peter's and you're a 15 and you go to the Sweet 16, Elite 8. Like, those are magical, but those are exceptional as opposed to sustainability. And what Utah's going to try and do is get a head coach that can sustain success. BYU feels like they've got the right guy in the right system to sustain success. And what a week it was last week.
Does it feel in Provo like any of what's happening with Utah basketball, maybe the timing of a Craig Smith firing and this coaching search, does it feel like the BYU atmosphere right now is influencing some of that?
Yeah, I wonder. I don't want to I feel bad if someone lose their job, and all indications are Craig Smith's a good dude. Rob Nielsen, the Utah State women's volleyball coach, was next door neighbors with him, and when he was in Logan, said he was a great neighbor, great guy. So I don't want to dunk on him in that way, but I imagine that there would be pressure up on the Hill seeing what BYU basketball is doing and the direction that it's headed, and certainly and at Utah, I know the last couple of years and whatnot have not been great, but there's some real history there. I lived in this state when Utah went to the Final Four, and Keith Van Horn and Doliak and Andre Miller and Alex Jensen and Britton Johnson. I remember those guys. those are some great teams. And you got a national championship to the name. Granted, it was a long time ago, but it's there, right? And there's rich history. So it's better when these two are good and they compete well. And I'm interested to see who the next guy is. And it sure feels like it's Alex Jensen, Andre Miller, or the field.
Jerem Jordan is our guest here, talking a little red and blue. BYU basketball as part of our Big 12 at noon coverage brought to you by Mountainland Supply. Go to mountainlandsupply.com. BYU basketball, 4 wins in a row. The last 2 have been over ranked squads. Kansas, who has fallen out of the rankings after BYU embarrassed them. And then a road trip to Arizona, a very impressive performance here, 96-95. That's an NBA score. This is an NBA game, Jerem Jordan. Big win over the Wildcats. What'd you like about it? What made you nervous?
Well, first off, it was like the second game in college basketball all year where both teams scored in the 90s, shot over 50% and over 40% from three. I saw that online. I was like, oh, my gosh. Like, it was an incredible offensive game, defense optional. BYU had every answer for all the Arizona questions they asked. They went in there and got another win, scored 96 points. Most points since Jimmer Fredette and BYU did that in 2009, which is funny. So BYU has a 2-game win streak in that gym. Are you kidding me? I mean, coming off the heels of Kansas and winning by 34, BYU's not a fluke. They are solidly in the NCAA tournament. It's just what seed they're going to get. They're vying for a top 5 seed in the Big 12, and they're showing that Kevin Young has learned some things, that this team has come together. And Richie Saunders answering the bell, getting that foul call late. Like, I know the TV angle doesn't do it justice, but, like, he got hip checked, argue it, whatever, it doesn't matter. He got the foul. They went to the line. He went to the line and he made 2 free throws, and BYU wins. Like, incredible week, incredible performance. BYU's playing great basketball right now. They're kind of peaking at the right time with 4 games to go. 3 of those 4 feel really winnable. And what if BYU goes to Iowa State and wins? Like, they could be a top 4 seed potentially. Like, the Cougars are playing great, and it's fun to watch because I think I told you a couple weeks ago too, I'm not just looking at this week, this year. I'm looking at this as like a build, right? And BYU's building not just to the end of the season, but into next year where they can attract even better recruits, win in the NCAA tournament this year, be a dangerous team, whatever seed they are. They could get as high as a 6 or 7, feels like. Probably going to be kind of in that 7, 8, 9 range if I had to guess. But then you go into the offseason, hopefully attract some good transfers to go with AJ, and now you're competing for what you hope will be a run in the NCAA tournament next year.
Who is the big man on campus for BYU basketball? Like, if I'm walking around down there,
Richie Saunders, dog.
It's got to be him, right?
It's the headband, Richie. No, he's great. Like, he was glue guy, and you look at him and you think there's no way this guy is quicker than me or can jump higher than me. He's legit. He's a legit athlete. Like, don't let looks deceive you. Just because he's got the curly hair and the headband and like looks like he was the AP on his mission. Like, he's legit. Like, he is a like NBA potential guy. Kevin Young said it early in the season. I even was like, whoa, what? And then he's become this like 20-point a game guy in the Big 12. Like, he could be first team all Big 12 if the season ended today. No worse than second. Like, he's putting up 20 a game in a lot of the big games. Like, his quick twitch, dribble, and shot, and his ability to get to the rim, and he'll reverse you, use the rim to protect. He's got 3-level scores. He's got a little floater. Great finisher at the rim, like 52 or 42% three-point shooter. Like, the dude is legit. He's really good. Like, is he a first-round NBA guy? No, that's not what I'm saying. But, like, he's an excellent college basketball player that's going to play in the NBA one day.
Did anything you saw against Kansas or Arizona make you feel better about the road trip to Iowa State? Is there a gap between Houston and Iowa State and the rest of this field in the Big 12, or is BYU now on that same plane?
I do think Iowa State defensively is closer to Houston than Arizona is. Arizona will let you – they'll try and just outscore you, outgun you with their guards, and they rebound really well. So I do think there's a gap there. Like, last year's team for BYU went to Iowa State, and they had a final possession to try and win and turned it over. So I'm interested to see if this team can go in there and hang with Iowa State that plays great defense, because BYU's only been blown up twice this year. It was at Providence in a weird game in December. Igor Demon gets hurt at the beginning of the game. And then The other game was Houston, where Houston's just legit. We saw that last night in Lubbock. They took care of Texas Tech, who was undermanned. But, yeah, there's a gap there. I think Iowa State's better team than Arizona. So we'll see what the Cougars can muster on March 4th. But can't wait to watch that game.
Utah's getting geared up for spring football. Has BYU made any announcements about getting rid of their spring game or anything crazy like we're seeing Texas and these other teams do?
They haven't announced anything. Traditionally, that game's not been a big deal to BYU. Like, it's just been a glorified practice. I think 2 years ago we had it on BYU TV, but the team wants that just quiet. Like, they don't want it out there. I remember Bronco Mendenhall telling us one time, like, we played Texas and we knew what they were going to do early in the season because we saw their spring game. And then I realized, well, wait, you lost that game. Like, so you didn't know everything. Like, I wish you would have won the game based on that information. But they haven't announced anything. But, yeah, it's the conversation of, do you want to sort of glorify these backups that may transfer? Now they're getting kind of public film out there as opposed to, okay, I'm jumping in the portal and I just have to show you my practice film. It's an interesting conversation, and they're still figuring out, like, when's the best time for the transfer portal and all that. I am interested too. For as popular as college football is, that there's nothing in the spring. Like, I wonder if it would be lucrative to have like one exhibition game versus an FCS team or something. Then maybe you don't play that game in the fall. I know you would be potentially prone to injury and whatnot. You wouldn't have to play starters, but like that, I'm shocked there's not like an alternative form of something in the spring, whether that be 7-on-7, like basketball is 3-on-3. Rugby has 7s instead of 15s. I'm surprised that there's not something in the spring, given how popular college football is.
Well, back in the day, a lot of these programs had JV squads, right?
Right? Yep.
Give me some JV football in the spring. I'm in. It's just
that'd be fun.
It's scouting for what could be, right? Maybe a guy plays his way out of that JV level and then is part of your actual travel squad starting situation in the fall. I mean, I'm down. Like, let's get together. Let's find some funding for this and start pitching this thing, Jerem.
I think it's interesting. Like Steve Young started on the JV team at BYU, interestingly enough. Which, by the way, random thought. I was scrolling through Instagram the other day and whatnot, and it was a compilation of all your like pre-fight like weigh-ins.
Yes.
And I was like, dude, there's my dude Sean. I just remembered that I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's my guy.
It makes the rounds every once in a while on social media, and I always know when it's happening because I'll pull up my Twitter or my Instagram one day, and I'll have like 1,000 new followers from Hungary or something.
1,000 from Hungary? That's amazing.
Well, that's an exaggeration, but I'll get like a couple hundred from like a random corner of the world, and I'll be like, what is this from? And it's because it finally made it to that corner of the world, me being an idiot at weigh-ins.
And now they're clued in on Utah youth sports.
That's right. That's right. And all of them now are listeners every single day here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Last thing before I let you go, NFL Combine Week. We know Tyler Batty is headed to Indianapolis. Is he expected to work out?
I don't know the answer to that. I have not heard exactly what his plans are, but I hope he does. I would imagine he does. He's got to, like we talked about last week, give some good measurables, and where he's going to thrive is his experience and leadership. And I think any team that adds Tyler Batty would benefit from who he is as a person and a player.
I think the interviews are such a huge part of this combine, and having spoken with Tyler, having interviewed him and also spoken with him privately, he's one of those guys that coaches, when he leaves the room, are going to be like, if he can play football, that's the kind of guy you have to have in your locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. And he overcame like a serious accident on a four-wheeler as a kid that like they said, hey, you probably shouldn't play football ever again. Like, he loves football. This dude loves football. And he's a great guy. I got to know him over the last 5 years, and he'd be a massive asset to whoever gets him. So I hope my Seahawks pick him up. Let's go.
I do need to know. I need to find. I don't know if you have this. Somebody told me that he was offered in the neighborhood of $1 million to go to Ole Miss and turned it down. And I need to find out if that's true or not. Like, I gotta ask him personally. I haven't had an opportunity to yet, but that's if you're a BYU listener out there, Tyler Batty might have done that for you. Just letting you know.
Most numbers are probably exaggerated, but if he was offered, I mean, even $500,000 go to Ole Miss to play in the SEC, connect with Jackson Dart, another local guy, like, and he didn't want that because he wanted to be a BYU. Like, I bet there are more stories like that where you love, like, in this era of it's all about me, which in business generally that is, like, there is a love of school still that exists. I know it's not for everybody, but I think Utah and BYU, like, there's certain kids who love the school or want to be there for more reasons than money. And can that money be competitive in a certain percentage to still make it worth it? Yeah, let's not be naive and be like, I get paid nothing, but I passed up this. No. You need to get a good amount if you're a good player. But, like, I wouldn't doubt that something like that would happen for Tyler Batty. I think he loved that stretch Y on his helmet.
Jeremy, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. Thanks for your time again today.
Appreciate it, Sean. I can't wait to see you on Instagram again.
Jeremy Jordan, feel better. You don't want that guy to lose his voice. It's always great hearing from him. All right, moving right along. Josh Furlong is going to join us next and give us all the insight he's got so far. He is actually a Big J journalist covering this University of Utah athletic department. Why now for the Craig Smith firing? And, of course, more importantly, who is next? Josh Furlong tells us, I hope, on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
No, it's a pretty simple thing. I mean, there's former players who were pretty successful, who wanted to help, wanted to be involved in the program. Some even would have decided to do so free of charge, and could have definitely helped, in the very least, excite the fan base. But more importantly, to help Craig understand how to be successful in Utah. And he didn't want to listen. He didn't want to take advice, I guess. I don't know what he was thinking, but he steered away from that. That's what I do know, because nobody was successful in breaking down that opportunity.
That's former running Ute, second leading scorer in program history, actually, Josh Grant, talking about Craig Smith and one of the reasons why it never really caught on, why Craig Smith, who has cut down the nets at his previous post, was not able to do so at the University of Utah. He was on the drive yesterday with Spence Checketts, which, of course, you can hear 2 to 6 right here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Joining us to weigh in on what we hope are some answers about what's next for Utah basketball, Josh Furlong, our friend, Utah insider. Josh, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you, OC?
Well, I'm doing good. I was a little bit caught off guard by this yesterday. That's probably a me problem, because I thought that we would see Craig Smith at least to the end of the year at the University of Utah. What could you tell me about the timing of this firing?
Yeah, I think it caught most people off guard, including myself. I mean, I was in that same boat that, the writing was kind of on the wall, but it felt like there was no reason to fire him until the end of the season. With that said, though, I mean, I know the university, like, you've got to play this game where if you know he's not going to be your guy, you have to play this game of trying to make it possible where, how do I say it? Like, you don't want to remove – you want to remove him in a time that's going to make it easier for you so that it doesn't look like, you're just firing a guy to fire a guy, right? Like, and so what happens if suddenly Utah goes on a run? We've seen this even last year in the NCAA tournament where a guy is fired, they let him coach, and he continues to go on a run, and now it's like, what do you do? So not that Utah was necessarily at risk of going on a massive run and having a tremendous amount of success, but I think if you know that you don't want them on there anymore, rip the Band-Aid off and start the process early. It sucks all around. I don't think anybody involved absolutely likes this type of situation. They liked Craig. It was just a situation of they needed to go in a different direction, and now you've got to strike where the iron's hot, so to speak.
So how far are they in the process of, we saw the statement, it's going to be a nationwide search. That a nationwide search for most people, though, they're like, yeah, search across the nation to see where Andre Miller or Alex Jensen's at right this moment. Is it a simple process? How far along are they in this thing?
Yeah, like how far did you have to look to Dallas or LA to be able to see where Alex Jensen was currently coaching? So, no, I mean, it's a nationwide search, and that's obviously, the key rhetoric that everybody puts in there. The reality is Alex Jensen's their guy, right? Like, he's their number one target. He's the guy that they want. My understanding from the people that I've talked to is this is his job, right? And assuming that everything goes well with the interviews and everything is agreed upon correctly, this doesn't have to go too long. You could wrap this up at the end of the week if you really wanted to, if not tomorrow. So the thing it comes down to is Alex Jensen's the guy. That's everybody that I've talked to. That's it. They said that this is it. He's got the donor support. He's got the ability to be able to bring back that Rick Majerus style of basketball, or at least the culture aspect of that. He's a Utahn. There's a lot that makes sense here. And so I think barring something kind of breaking down at the last minute, Alex feels like the guy from what I've heard. But anything can change, and obviously that door will open up, and you have to imagine that they look to other alumni to be able to go before they open it up to other guys. But this feels like they've isolated on the guy that they want. That's probably why they also acted so early, is because they knew that they could do this, knowing that Dallas is kind of in free fall with the Luka Doncic trade and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I anticipate Luka's about to hang like 50-something on Dallas tonight, so maybe Alex is going to want to get on a plane and come to Salt Lake City right after that. But Okay, let's string this out a little bit. You mentioned something that is really important to this whole scenario. The boosters, the donors, the NIL contributors, the alumni who have some influence at the University of Utah. How much influence is the right amount of influence, knowing that, they want their guy, Alex Jensen is their guy. Is this like one of those processes where you get this dude and my checkbook is open to you? If you can't get this guy, then we have to have a different conversation. I mean, how delicate a balance does Mark Harlan and company have to strike in that regard?
Yeah, there's always a fine balance, right? Because there's plenty of instances where the boosters take over and they get their guy and it doesn't even work out. I mean, you can even look that far as in terms of Utah State trying to go after Gary Anderson again, right? They wanted him to be the guy, and it didn't pan out, right? Like, and there's different circumstances that make that happen. So you have to paint this fine balance of trying to just let the boosters have everything, but at the same time, you kind of have to rethink everything that you've done before. The running Utes weren't getting the support that they needed to. They weren't getting the booster support that they needed to be able to build the NIL and everything there. So with that, if it reasons to stand that Alex Smith is the guy, you have to imagine that there's going to be a large subset of fans, especially those that are around for the Rick Majerus era, the time that Alex Jensen was playing. They're going to be really energized to be able to get in there. Now, anytime money's involved, you have to be careful, right? It's real easy to make a quick buck, right? And so I think this is becoming the difficult, tough thing in college athletics, where you don't just cater to everything to the boosters want. You obviously have to listen to them, but you have to keep things in mind. Now, I that to this level, like, I think you're getting it from a national perspective as well, where everybody is saying the NIL has to improve at Utah or they're doomed, right? And no coach wants to come into a situation where they already feel doomed. This is essentially the first head coaching job that Alex Jensen could get if this is him. And he's wanting to do this in a way where he gets the support of boosters. And so if anybody impedes that, why would you take that job? And so I think Harlan has to be cognizant of that and recognize, like, if we're going to go down this road, we have to be open to any and all boosters that want to get involved, while also still maintaining our level of, freedom to be able to do what we need to. But you have to be able to include the boosters, or else this is just another decision to hire a guy that's probably only going to be here for a few years, and then what do? Right? You're in the same situation. Now you've tried it with an alumni that fizzled out, and now it didn't work. So you've got to open up that checkbook and hope that you can get some of that dollars to come in there.
Can Utah basketball have their cake and eat it too? Would it be possible to see Alex Jensen and Andre Miller coexisting in this program?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a possibility there. And I haven't gotten as much firmness on Andre Miller coming to Utah as an assistant. I have heard rumblings of that. But with that said, I mean, the two of them would be quite the pairing, right? I mean, if you can get those two legends in the Utah athletics program to be able to come, I don't know what more support you could need from the boosters, right? Now, both of them, obviously, they don't have the head coaching experience at the collegiate level, and it's tough to be able to understand how that goes. The Big 12 is not an easy conference to be able to manage that in. I know that was the biggest thing that everybody talked about when Kevin Young was hired at BYU, right? He's got a great NBA pipeline, and he understands how it's done at the NBA level. So does Alex Jensen. But at the same time, how is it going to work in the collegiate level? And right now, he's finally started to get that going. It took a bit, but now he's finally to get that going. If you can follow that same path, and I know Utah fans don't want to hear follow the path of BYU. That's heresy around here. But I mean, if you can follow that same path and if you can get something similar, yeah, you're in the mix, right? It doesn't really matter how you got there as long as you can get there. So if you can get Alex Jensen and Andre Miller, two guys that understand basketball at the highest levels at Utah in the pros. I mean, Andre Miller lasted in the NBA for so long. I mean, he just knows everything. If you can get those two paired up together, it's never a guarantee, but it feels like you at least have a lot of basketball knowledge in the room to be able to help you move forward, especially in the culture of what Utah has done traditionally.
Josh Furlong, our guest here, talking all Utah sports, focused on Utah basketball right now. He's over at KSL.com. Josh, I get sick of hearing my own voice talking about the finances associated with college sports right now. But, money makes the world go round, and it certainly is the case in college athletics at this point. Craig Smith, you got to pay a decent buyout to. And, of course, you've got a revenue sharing model that's going to come into place in the next couple of months here. We saw the reports that this athletic department operated at a slight deficit since joining the Big 12. And Mark Harlan does a good job of talking about the willingness to invest, especially in basketball, how they continue to do so. Is Utah Athletics in a good spot financially right now, especially as it pertains to the Runnin' Utes?
I would say yes, but that's tentative, right? I mean, I think it's tough to know fully until this House settlement case is passed, and we see what type of impact it has on Utah athletics. The amount that programs are able to go up to is $20.5 million, and they don't have to go up to that full amount. I'm curious to see what Utah would go to. I understand that they want to be as competitive as they can, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's not at 20 or just a little bit under. But that's a real implication on your athletic department funds. And so, except for this last year where they had to deal with the Comcast issue and some other stuff, I mean, Utah generally was operating at a $2 to $4 million revenue, and then now to suddenly come up with 20 million, that's tough, right? And this has to come out of athletic department funds. Obviously they can move things around and kind of divvy things up a little bit, but this is going to be a real world of concern if you're not able to get success in football and men's basketball specifically. Now, with that being said, if men's basketball turns around and you start getting this donor support, that's going to help tremendously. It's still never going to be at the same level as football, barring Utah suddenly going on a bunch of NCAA tournament runs. But you've got to be able to have success in both of those two programs the most. And if you can do that, then I think Utah's in a fine position. I think they've proven over the years that they've been able to, kind of roll with the punches, kind of adapt and move forward. But it's such a, thin margin of error that if you're not able to capitalize on that, suddenly you're compounding those losses and it becomes really challenging for an athletic department to fund itself. And then do you lose other programs? What sports are being cut? Is baseball cut? Is beach volleyball cut? Is golf cut? Some of these sports that, they do well, but you've got to kind of finance your department while still maintaining NCAA eligibility. So it's a tough situation. I think it's still too early to know. I know that's the question everybody wants to know. I want to know it. But I will say cautiously optimistic that Utah's going to be fine. It just depends on how this is all going to shake out.
How much longer are we going to have a Utah football spring game? Everyone is moving away from these things. And look, it's not like this incredibly competitive affair. It's a showcase so that people can go out, take the kids, and remind themselves why they love Utah football. But other programs are going away from this. Is it going to stay at Utah?
I think the toughest thing going against Utah right now is that they've labeled it the 22 forever game. And you've now tied that to something that is so emotional to the program and the fan base that doing away with that, it becomes a challenge. Now, that's not to say that they couldn't do it, right? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Kyle Whittingham isn't considering it because he's already, nervous about transfer portals and guys leaving the program and showcasing guys that suddenly somebody else can take. So, I think there's a world where he's trying to live where you can still kind of do something, honor the 22 forever, mantra, while not giving away everything. And we've seen that with him watering down a lot of that stuff, but at the same time, I don't know of any advantage to be able to have that. And, maybe you change it to a flag football and you just do some things to make it fun for fans to come in. I know they kind of do that already to some extent. But to me, as college football currently stands, the spring game doesn't provide any value, right? You go to these games, and I know some fans got excited a few years ago when Charlie Brewer went 15 of 15 from the spring game. Anybody watched that knew that he got sacked like a million times. It was
Why?
it was a farce.
Why did you do that? Why did you bring up the false hopes that everyone put in Charlie Brewer? Why are you doing this?
I don't know, man. Like those, like as a media member, like I go to those things, and it's like I'm excited to watch football, right? Like whether it's like bad football and watered down football or not, I'm excited for it because it gives me something. But I mean, the reality is, yeah, like anybody that's trying to glean anything from those games is really up in the night. But I think more than just a spring game, I think it's going to be the direction of how these coaches talk about players. when we have media availability, right? Like, are they going to praise a kid too highly, especially a newcomer, so that he gets all this buzz before and then potentially goes into the portal? I don't know. Like that to me, mixed with the spring game, is really interesting to me. Is Kyle going to be much more reserved on a new face because he doesn't want anybody to get their hands tipped and suddenly go poach them away? So I don't know. Whether it goes away or not, I don't think it ultimately matters. I think if you do take it away, you do need to find something to give the fans an opportunity, whether it's to meet the players or kind of get galvanized that moment, but use it as a fundraising opportunity. I mean, look, you're trying to make money. I think anything you can do to keep fans involved is great, but I wouldn't blame people for definitely getting rid of that spring game.
All right, very last thing. NFL Combine going on in Indianapolis. Brant Keithy going to go out there for the interview portions. Tafuna and Reed, can those guys make themselves some money with the athletic testing, you think?
Yeah, I think Tafuna especially. I think he showcased in the Senior Bowl that he's got the talent to be able to compete against some of the best out there. Now, does that mean he's suddenly going to rise up the boards tremendously? I don't think so. He's probably a late day 2, early day 3 type guy. But I think if anybody has the opportunity to do so, it's him. Karene Reed is always going to have the size disadvantage. He's always going to have that situation where guys are going to look at him and say he's not the prototypical linebacker. The thing is, if you look at him and you watch him, he's a very intelligent player and he knows exactly what to do. So, you may get a flyer of a team that comes in there and say, based on his measurables at the combine and what he's able to do, maybe that gives him an uptick. But I think the odds-on favorite is for Tafuna to be able to have the best jump. But I think both of these guys are in good positions, right? Whether you get drafted in the 3rd round or 5th round, I don't think it ultimately matters. I think it's about fit. And if both of these guys can find a good landing spot, I think they have the talent to be able to make a team. So, I know a lot of people put a lot of stock into this NFL Combine, and I'm not saying it's not merited, but I think both of these guys are going to be in a good position no matter where they land.
Josh, always great talking to you. Go outside. It is a beautiful day. I'm sorry that I've kept you on this phone call. Just go stand in some grass or something. I can't wait to get out in the sunshine.
You're telling me to touch grass. Is this what you're doing? Am I making hot takes or something? No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate it, man.
That's Josh Furlong, Utah Insider, Utah Athletics Insider, giving us a little football and, of course, the Runnin' Utes coaching situation. Great to have him, as always, joining us from KSL.com. All right. You're running out of chances to see a Runnin' Utes home game? Text Utes to 33986 now for a chance to win a pair of tickets. The next home game is Saturday, March 1st against Arizona State. Tickets are also available at utahtickets.com. A tank race update. Are the Jazz racing fast enough to the bottom? James Peterson has that for us. Jeff Schwartz joins us to talk some Combine in about 10 minutes. It's Utah's #1 sports talk. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Jeff Schwartz joins us in 5 minutes to talk NFL scouting combine. James Peterson has a tank race update for you now on the Sean O'Connell Show. What do you got, James?
Well, the Jazz, I mean, they totally redeemed themselves, OC, with the after
that good effort and winning. They finally did what they were supposed to do and lost.
They finally lost again. All is right with the world in this bizarro world of tanking that the Utah Jazz and the fan base find themselves in, cheering for the tank, that is. They fall to the Blazers 114-112. They did their darndest not to lose. Keontae George had some late heroics we played earlier in the show, some highlights there that they got him as close as they could without winning. They end up losing 114-112. Thank goodness we breathe a sigh of relief, OC. All is right with the world once again. Wizards beat the Nets last night too, OC. How about that? So the team that's kind of running away with the tank with the worst record in the league, they come back to the pack just a little bit with a win over the Nets. 10th win of the year for the Wizards. No team is going to end with single-digit wins this year. So I feel like that deserves a little bit of applause there.
Okay, great.
We don't want it to be too awful, right? So everybody's in the double digits.
It is fun every once in a while to see a team that's just like, oh my gosh, like the 0-16 Cleveland Browns.
Right.
It's fun to see that every now and
again.
The
every
Detroit
now and
Lions.
Again. That's true. Will not be this year. Hornets fell to the Kings, unfortunately. Zach LaVine, 42 points for the Kings, by the way. A recent addition at the trade deadline. And then more bad news. Oh, let me tell you about what happened in the T-Wolves game, OC. OKC, the best team in the West. It's been them and the Cavs that have kind of jockeyed for the best record in the NBA throughout the season. A lot of people picking the Thunder to win the championship this year. They've been that good. Up 82-57 in OKC, 7 minutes to play in the third quarter. It's in the bag. 82-57, 25-point lead.
Yeah.
SGA finishes the game with 39 points, 10 boards, 9 assists. Okay? You see that, you're like, okay, OKC probably won by a lot, right? Thunder are running away with it. They're up 22 at the end of the third, 102-80. You still feel really good about that. For the secondary tank, if you're Jazz fans, you feel really good about it if you're a Thunder fan. 106-82, 11 minutes to play in the game.
Okay, you're fine.
All right, you're still fine. 121-105 with 4 minutes left. How you feeling if you're a Thunder fan and if you're a Jazz fan rooting for the T-Wolves?
Well, you're probably like, what's going on here? But you're still okay. That's a double-digit lead.
And I'm rounding up to 4. Just under 4 minutes left. 3:55.
Okay.
The final 3 minutes and 55 seconds, T-Wolves go on a 16-0 run to send the game to overtime.
What?
And now you're like, oh, no. And you'd think it was a bunch of turnovers. Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels must have wreaked havoc on the defensive end, forced a bunch of turnovers, lots of fast break points. No turnovers for OKC during that time. They did miss 3 layups. I don't know if they were – I didn't look back at them to see how contested the layups were. One of them was blocked, so obviously a contested layup. And including what would have been the game winner, SGA misses a layup that's probably somewhat contested in the last closing seconds of the game. So just missed shots. No turnovers, not a ton of fouls. They just missed shots and some layups there. T-Wolves take advantage, send the game to OT. They win 131-128 in overtime. Just heartbreaking for the secondary tank for Jazz fans, OC.
Oh, come on. Okay, primary tank, good job. Secondary tank, come on, Minnesota.
Come on, T-Wolves. Get on board.
Make me sick.
Tonight, 2 games happening in the tank race that factor in the tank race. Pelicans hosting the Spurs. Remember, the Pels beat the Spurs in their last matchup on Sunday. An upset win for Nolans, looking to duplicate it. Hornets at the Warriors tonight. Mark Williams, Hornets center. He missed last night's game against the Kings. He's a game-time decision and officially questionable for Charlotte tonight. Also, Warriors look much better with Jimmy Butler in the fold than they did pre-trade deadline. So doesn't feel good for the Hornets tonight and for the primary tank for the Jazz, but we shall see. Those are the only two games that matter in the NBA tonight, right? OC, there's no big revenge game or anything.
I don't think that those games matter to most people. They matter primarily to us.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is going to be watching Luka Doncic try and
Oh yeah, that's right. That is tonight.
try and make Dallas regret their decision to trade him, which they already do.
Yeah, make them regret it more. The standings update. Wizards now 10-47.
Good job, Wizards.
With the
Double-digit
win.
wins.
Very good. 4 games up on. We're moving up. So the Jazz and Pelicans are now tied for second.
Okay.
I moved the
all
Jazz.
right.
I put the 2 next to the Jazz though, because it felt good to put the 2 next to the Jazz
I
name.
like that.
When it's a tie, you can choose which one you put in second place. I'm putting the Jazz in second place. Pelicans also, they're both 14-43 now, 4 games back of the Wizards in the tank race. And the Hornets, a half game behind those two in fourth at 14-42, 4.5 games back. So still very tight position, places 2 through 4 in the tank race. And the Wizards coming back to the pack just a little bit with last night's win. T-Wolves, where are they? They're now tied for 6th with the Clippers, and both of them 4 games ahead of the 11th place Suns. So that's not good for the secondary tank. They're now in a position where they can avoid the play-in altogether. There's your tank race update, OC.
I just saw a stat as they're recapping right now on ESPN the Timberwolves comeback. I just saw a stat that looked like a typo, and it said NBA teams are 1 and 9,429 when trailing by 16 points or more with 3:45 left.
Oh, my gosh.
Almost 10,000 games that doesn't happen. That has to be some kind of typo. I must have seen that wrong. I got to find this.
That is
absurd.
I mean, that's absurd, and what an accomplishment by the T-Wolves to do that. Not only just do that against anybody, but against the best team in the West. And what a lot of people think is the best team in the NBA, with the MVP favorite having himself an incredible night, 39-point night that SGA had. I mean, that's incredible. We probably, because that's a stat, it's easy to say we probably won't ever see that again, will we?
Yeah, I mean,
will we, OC?
1 out of 10,000-ish.
Yeah.
They're going to play another 9,000 plus and before we see it again, potentially. All right, got to take a break. Jeff Schwartz joins us to talk NBA Scouting Combine. He's headed to Indianapolis this week. Yes, he's going to be focused on the offensive linemen, but we'll see if he can get us some insight on Junior Tafuna and Karene Reed as well. The Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Jeff Schwartz now. Jenna Johnson joining us next to talk a little Utah women's basketball. Jeff Schwartz, my longtime co-host on Pac-12 Radio, former Oregon Duck, and a veteran of the National Football League, nearly a decade playing offensive line at the highest level, joins us now to talk a little Combine. Jeff, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you? I thought of you the other day because obviously Utah's coach got fired, basketball coach. We would have spent like 12 minutes on our show. So I would have been like, I would have looking forward to the analysis of that. I was surprised. I was surprised that Utah fired their coach.
Yeah, it's now the effort turns towards finding their replacement. And as is the case whenever there's a job opening, of course, the boosters, the alumni, the fans want a great player in the program's history to come back and take the job.
Who's the favorite for the fans?
Well, Alex Jensen, who's been a longtime NBA assistant, obviously, and Andre Miller getting some love as well. He's currently in the G League coaching Grand Rapids. So
you know my take on this. This is always a bad decision.
It's not always a bad decision.
Okay, 99% of the time, bad decision. It only works for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan.
For which party is it the bad decision? For the department or for the former player?
Well, I think for the athletic department. I think that when you have a former player as your coach, that he might not be the best option, right? That's not always the best option. We think it might be because they know the program, but Utah is a big enough program. You don't have to know the program to be a good coach there. But I think too, sometimes, you accept sort of less than standards because it's a guy if that makes sense. And I just think it doesn't ever work. There's obviously examples where it has worked. I just mentioned Jim Harbaugh, but a lot of times I feel like it just does not work. There's just always little things that happen here and there that make it not function as well as you want it to.
Well, we will see how it goes. Apparently, conversations have already begun, and hopefully it doesn't take too long to get whoever it is in there to start turning this program around. It's been too long since they made an NCAA tournament appearance, and that was the primary reason given for the reason for the firing. And it's tough because, we work in this business, and you get to know coaches on, like, the interview level at the very least. Craig Smith is like one of the best guys to talk to, one of the nicest guys in the game. And you never want to see one of those guys leave, even if the results aren't ideal or where they wanted to be. Like, it's not like we're friends, but he was always gracious with his time. He was always really forthcoming as a communicator. And not every coach is like that. So as a media member, you're just like, oh, man, a coach that actually doesn't mind talking to me is gone. That sucks.
It's the Clay Helton. It's like the nicest human ever. You're like, I don't want that guy fired.
Jonathan Smith, like these guys, when they moved on, you're just like, what? No, I want to talk to him every day.
I know. I mean, they make it so much easier for us to do our job when they are as nice as they can be. But yes, I mean, in the end, obviously, you got to win. You got to win games, right? And that's in this business now. Because of the money involved, you got to win now. Like, there's just not a lot of patience, and that's what happens in the sport now.
I'm probably more obsessed with this idea than a lot of people like me to be, but how much does your rival school, your in-state school, the team in your conference that you hate, being successful in an area or beating you head-to-head, how much does it weigh in on these athletic department decisions, better or worse?
A lot, I think. I mean, look what happened when Michigan couldn't beat Ohio State forever. They finally do it. They win a championship, and then all of a sudden Ohio State has like the most expensive roster in the country.
Yeah.
Of course it matters. Now, BYU, I don't think is winning a championship, but of course it matters when, they're able to, especially now you're in the same league. I think beforehand, maybe not as much is put into that, but now you're in the same conference. They're kicking butt, and they're doing it they score a ton of points. They beat Kansas that way, they beat Arizona that way, even though there's a pretty bad call at the end there, I feel like. The Zapruder film of that is so funny, man. It's just like, you guys, that was a soft foul. Come on, we can be honest here. But that does, to me, that matters. It matters a lot.
Okay, let's As much as I do enjoy talking Utah college basketball with you, that's not why I brought you on. It's Combine Week, and
Yes.
I made you do this. I think every year for it's either 6 or 7 years in a row.
Oh yeah, okay.
Where I'm not gonna read your pre-draft scouting report.
You know it by heart by now. Don't
I have
worry.
it memorized. I don't need to read
A
it.
massive man.
It starts with. It's like a tale of two cities. You know what I mean? 'Twas the best of times, was the worst of times. A massive man is the first thing they say about Jeff Schwartz. For obvious reasons, because he is indeed a massive man. We'll do that on another show closer to the draft when you join us. But, just recap for all of us your love of the pre-draft workout and evaluation process and how you have to just check out of being a football player to be a workout pro for a little while.
Yeah, it's definitely different because you spend all these years training for football stuff, and then all of a sudden you basically are doing football stuff, right? You're doing movement drills, obviously that might mimic some football stuff, but you're really not doing football stuff. At 40, you're timing at 20, at 10, you're doing some agility stuff it's football adjacent, right? But it's not really football, and so you train for 6 months or 6 weeks to get it done. And then you go out there and you try to do as best as you can, and then all of a sudden, like, you hope you never do it again. Now, there's a pro day, of course, and whatnot. And I think that over the years, we've done teams maybe or media have done a better job of just sort of talking about the importance or maybe the lack thereof of the combine. Sometimes, like, to me, it's more about cross-checking the film. So, for example, if Jeff Schwartz, who is a slow football player, if I play slow on film, I get to the combine, I run slow, then you're like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. Like, Jeff Schwartz is not fast, and he's not fast at the combine. Okay, like, check that box. If I play slow and then run fast, then you have to go back and figure out, why am I playing so slow? Like, does he not understand what's happening? Does he not trust himself? And then vice versa. What if I show on film I'm pretty fast and quick and agile, and then I get to the testing and I'm not. Why is that? So that to me is what's more about it's just sort of cross-checking for teams, and for players, it's just checking a box. Team wants to see a 40 time, but there is sort of, for offensive linemen at least, there is one drill, Sean, that actually is something to watch if you're a fan of the offensive line. The short shuttle is a really good indicator of NFL success. If you're under a 4.4 for your short shuttle, which is a 5.10.5, you play like 70% of career snaps. Like, you're always healthy, you're always on the field. A lot of the guys are really good, and I think that's just, again, sort of more about the ability to just bend and move and do these things that keep you healthy throughout your career. So there's not, again, a long-winded way to say, there's something to take out of it. It's mostly just cross-checking. For the player, it just feels weird to go through this process and sort of never do it again in your career.
How was your short shuttle?
Slow, I would imagine.
Oh.
You can look up like the little spider matrix of your combine results.
Yeah.
Which I have, and is 1 better or 100 better?
I don't know. 100?
My vertical was a 1. So it says one percentile. The first percentile. So if you're curious how Jeff Schwartz tests as an athlete, what's funny is you can go to I like using Ken Lee Platt has RAS scores. I think we talked to them before, the RAS scores.
Relative athleticism.
Yeah. And mine was better than my brother's, which is shocking because I'm not a good athlete, NFL wise. So again, it's all to cross check in my opinion, and then the medicals, obviously, as we know, hugely important. It's why the combine was founded. It's what the teams care about most, making sure that just physically these players are up to caliber. The weirdest part of it all is always the weigh-in, where you just stand in front of the entire NFL scouting departments, and you're in your shorts or you're in your tights mostly, and they just measure you and yell out like 6'6", 103, 331 pounds, and you do a squat in front of everyone too, like in this giant room. You do like a squat, like just to see your ankle flexion. It's always again, it's just odd. It's an odd week.
Oh.
You're not. as much as you prepare for it, you really just it never feels normal.
That's the one thing I can relate to, standing on a scale
Oh, the
in your
way it's
underwear in front of a bunch of
Yeah.
people. At least it's not open to the public for you guys. That
But
is.
you would always bring flowers, though. That was always nice of you. Pizza.
I never had I fought on a Conor McGregor card where the weigh-in itself was sold out, and it was all Irish people because
I love it.
it was in Boston and they had come over from Ireland, and because my name is O'Connell, they decided they liked me. So I walked up onto the scale, and there's like 3,000 Irish people just like, yeah, while I'm standing there in dinosaur undies. It worked out.
Did you make your weight that day?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, good.
I never
would
missed
never
weight.
I would never make weights. It would not be good.
Well, they don't. 265 is the limit for heavyweight, Jeff. So
Yeah, I mean that was like when I was 12. I'm not making that obviously now, but the thought of like weighing in again and just cutting weight, I hate it every Friday I had to weigh in.
Oh, Jeff Schwartz, our guest here, talking NFL Combine. So you mentioned the medical thing, and obviously this is massively important. Give me a sense of the scrutiny somebody like Brant Keithy, who is attending, and he's only going to do interviews and medicals because he's recovering from an injury. And he was, unfortunately, injury-prone during his Utah career. So what level of scrutiny does somebody like that go through in this process, knowing that he missed like multiple years, a serious amount of time with injury?
So there's going to be about 5 rooms with NFL personnel in all 5. So like 6 teams a room. And you're going to walk into the room, and there's going to be, again, 6 doctors. Well, more than that. Some teams will bring their, for most teams, for those who are unaware, you have a orthopedist, right? Someone who does the bones. Then you have someone like an internist, right? That does like maybe like a family medicine doctor, essentially, right? Like someone does sort of like an internal organs and whatnot. Then you typically have like one other just sort of ortho, right? Or one specialist, whatever it is. And so all those guys might be there, and they're gonna have your chart from your records from the school. Now they've already previewed these. Like it's not the first time reading them. They've spent weeks kind of going over this. Athletic trainers are going to be there, and they're just going to go through your body. They're going to read down the chart and say, hey, okay, well, you got a back here. How's your back move? How's your knee move? I remember during mine, I sprained my MCL as a freshman in college, and again, I didn't think much of it, and they found it when they were doing my physical examination, which I thought was odd. But they're like, "Does your knee is your knee a little loose?" And they write this all down, and then you go ahead and you get MRIs and X-rays, and they have to determine whether or not these, again, essentially injuries you had are they overcome. Does your knee is it bone on bone now? Is like how's that process going? Is your shoulder bad? So then they take all the medical information, give you a medical grade. And so there are some teams, Sean, that just don't draft injured players. Like I know like the Chiefs are really big on this. If you've been hurt, man, they really don't want to draft you. Now they might draft you at a lower level, right? If you're a second round talent, they get you in the 4th round. Okay, great. But they're just, a lot of teams are just want to avoid guys that have been hurt in the past. And I get it. I understand that. But that's what this is for. This is what the Combine has always been for. It's for medicals and for interviews. And it's a long day for medicals. You're there, Keating's going to be there a long time. And again, they're going to have to figure out whether these injuries will affect his future career, whether they'll affect his ability to play throughout his career. It's all these things I have to figure out. I can't give you a great answer for what they're going to determine, but that's what they're looking at. They're trying to figure out, is this a problem throughout his career?
Who are you most excited to watch at this Combine? I know you're headed to Indianapolis. You're going to be there. You're probably most excited about Skyline Chili and what's next.
Skyline Chili's in Indianapolis?
Oh wait, no, that's Cincinnati. Sorry.
What's that? St. Elmo's.
St. Elmo's is what you're excited about.
It's like I would never. Skyline Chili sounds gross. I ain't doing that. I mean, it's a great running back class. I kind of want to see these guys all work out. That seems like a position this year that we're going to have just more drafted than usual. I don't know how high these guys are going to go. And some are not doing it. Obviously, Genty's opting out. And then I think for just defensive line, it's a big defensive line class. How are these guys moving? We're going to get crazy speeds and numbers. And we might have some eye-openers on that level. And then the quarterbacks aren't throwing. I get it. I'd rather they throw just to see them do it. It doesn't matter either way. They're Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, their draft slot's not changing because they throw or do not throw. in the combine. But I think for me, I just want to see the running backs. It's just a really good running back class.
So the Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward conversation is going to continue all the way up to draft day, and I think Mel Kiper put out another mock, and he's got Ward slated like 6 picks above Shedeur. Is anything that they do at the combine, interviews I imagine will matter most for them, is anything that these guys do at the combine going to change their fate?
No, unless their board work is like really horrendous, which I just don't think is going to happen. Both guys, I would imagine, been coached up and sort of ready for this moment. I mean, look, it's certainly possible that they come out and give some really terrible answers, but if you're Tennessee and you enter this with the first pick and you like Cam Ward over Shedeur, I don't know what's going to change that much. You've already done your. I would imagine your background check's already been done, right? It's not a surprise. You've talked to the coaching staff. Like you're pretty well versed on what's good or bad about these players, and I don't think much will change. If Shedeur had gone out there and just like threw excellent and he looked much better than Cam Ward, maybe that would change a little bit. But I just don't see much changing. I think Cam Ward is number 1. As a quarterback, Shedeur is number 2. Now, does that mean Shedeur gets drafted? I don't know, higher than he might. I don't know, but those guys are, I think, firmly 1 and 2. Now, maybe 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 would change after the combine performance, but I doubt it.
Okay, if you're an NFL GM, you know that Matthew Stafford is available. Would you rather give up some assets to get him, or draft a rookie quarterback, knowing that you got a shorter runway with Matthew Stafford and a rookie's going to take more development?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I mean, this is the easy answer, but I think it just depends on what your goals are. Like if you're the Giants and you just want to be good for a couple of years just to say you're good or you're better, then get Matt Stafford. You're not winning a Super Bowl with him, right? I mean, if you're Pittsburgh, that feels like maybe a better option, because I think if you look at sort of where their roster's at right now, possibly like that's a better choice. But again, like that's you have to have the players around Stafford to succeed. The Giants just don't scream that to me as having those players. So that to me is the concern, is if you trade for him and you're going to pay him $50 million, what he wants, do you have the players around Stafford to succeed over the next couple of years?
Deebo Samuel on the move, where does he end up?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I look at him as maybe a post-draft trade, like someone just doesn't get a wide receiver, Sean, and they want to trade for him. He's not going to get a lot. I don't think he's going to get a lot. Couple, maybe a 7th, 5th, 6th round pick, something like that. I don't think he had a chance last year to be the number 1 wide receiver after the Ayuk injury. He just didn't come through like he wanted, and I think that teams are not. The slash thing is fun and whatnot, but how much value does he really provide as a running back to you? Not very much, right? He needs to be a wide receiver first, and he just didn't catch the ball very well. And again, when Brandon Ayuk was out, he didn't step up, man.
What about Sam Darnold? I guess I could have phrased the question the exact same as I did about Matt Stafford, but what about Sam Darnold as an option? He's younger.
Yeah.
He has not experienced the same highs necessarily or the same consistency as Stafford has, but he's not a rookie either.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about the money with him, right? I think Darnold is just he's good. I mean, it depends on what system he's in, what offense he's in. If you pay him $30 million a year, maybe that's worth it. Anything more, I feel like you're getting sort of way over your skis. That feels like way too expensive to do that.
Okay, Luka is facing his former team tonight. I've set my personal over-under. I've set at 39.5. I think he's going to go off on purpose. That would be double the production he's put forth in a Lakers uniform so far. Over-under.
Well, he played really well the other night.
Yeah. And he's an awesome player.
Yeah, I will say there's so much pressure on him tonight to play well. I would go under. I think he's gonna try to do too much, and I think that's probably not great. And I don't think he's also like in when you watched him play the other night, which I was watching most of that Nuggets game, he did sort of slow down. And we got a little bit tired at the end of the game, right? I mean, he's still coming back from injury. So I will always lean under when it's those type of things where everyone's betting their overs tonight. I would lean under. Sean, speaking about money and wallets, okay, I got to tell you this story.
That was going to be my next thing. I need
this is where I miss our show the most. Okay, it's like this time of year when you have no football. So my wife and I are out to dinner for Valentine's Day. We're just like a casual. We're at the sushi bar. I put my wallet. I have a Louis Vuitton wallet. I put it up on the bar with my phone. I'm like, I think the first Valentine's Day is the first time you bought me the Louis Vuitton wallet. She bought it to me, and we were dating for about 8-9 months, and she bought me the wallet, and it might have been for my birthday. I think it was for Valentine's Day, and I was like, maybe it was my year and a half in. I don't know when it was, but she bought me this wallet, which I knew she couldn't afford. And so I was like, wow, this is like super nice. I better get her a nicer gift than I was going to get her. So I went to like Macy's and got these earrings, okay? The earrings, they told me were worth like $2,200. I got them for like $800. And little did I know when I started buying like nicer jewelry, the earrings were terrible. They had like black spots everywhere. I didn't know any better, okay? But Meredith wore them and she never complained and whatnot. So I've always thought like, man, this is super nice. She bought me this wallet she couldn't afford. I mean, she was a medical assistant back then. So 14 years ago, all right? Okay. She says, at dinner the other night, she goes, yeah, it was a fake wallet. It wasn't real.
No.
15 years later, she goes, it was a fake wallet.
Oh, it was a phooey. It was a phooey.
How about that?
You have talked about this wallet. This wallet is part of the lore of your relationship.
Yeah, I know. And it was.
She's like, oh, it was fake.
She goes, yeah, it was fake. She goes, I couldn't afford that. I was like, yeah, I know. That's why I bought you the earrings. I was like, I can't. There's no way she can afford the $300 wallet. I should have known. Should I have known it was fake?
I mean, no, you don't want to assume, especially when you're early.
But I was also just like young. I was like 22. I didn't know like what's real and what's fake with that stuff yet. My parents don't own any of those high designer items. I never grew up around any of that.
I love that so much.
Yeah, fake. Yeah, she goes, no, it was fake. I'm gonna find those earrings in our closet.
Yeah. So now you don't have to feel so bad about the low quality diamonds you got her.
They were so bad, Sean. When I bought her like her engagement ring, and I like this is now this would have been like 5 years after I bought her the earrings, or 4 years, and you start learning about like what's good, like what's good and what's bad. I was like, oh man, I bought her some really bad earrings.
Well,
and she didn't say a word though. She never said anything about them. So I give her credit for that, because now she would, if I bought her a diamond that had a black mark in it, I would hear about it.
Well, my wife, I sold a Bitcoin to buy my wife's engagement ring.
Well, you shouldn't have Bitcoin anyways. We could do that another time.
This was back when Bitcoin was not $88,000, which is the price it is today. And then I did a remote broadcast at a jeweler the other day.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh man, you probably paid a lot for your wife's ring." I was like, "I mean, I didn't go crazy overboard, but I did pay a lot." And then I told him, I'm like, "And I sold a Bitcoin back when Bitcoin was pretty cheap. I sold a Bitcoin to get it." And he started laughing because we were like, "Oh, that was a $95,000 ring or whatever." And then he's like, well, now you can get these. Everyone does manufactured diamonds. It's like the normal thing now.
Yeah, the lab-grown ones, yeah.
He's like, here's a lab-grown 2-carat diamond for like a fraction of the price.
Oh, it's so
and I was like,
so
oh my
cheap.
gosh.
Yeah, the lab-grown stuff. I've got her lab-grown earrings.
Brutal.
Her ring is real, but and it's not. It's not the. Saying they're not real is not the right way to say it, because they are real.
They're real.
They're just made differently.
Yours just came with oppression and suffering, like of the people who mined it. Which.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So it depends on how you feel there, but yes, that's the big difference. But dude, yeah, fake. She goes, yeah, that was fake. Perfect. Just an incredible merit of the story.
Oh, well done. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, enjoy Indy. Appreciate you, dude.
All right, buddy. Talk to you later.
Jeff Schwartz, longtime NFL veteran, talking about the NFL scouting combine, the poking and the prodding and the medicals for Brant Keithy. Not going to be the most enjoyable, but hopefully everything comes out looking good. All right, take a quick one here. We'll come back with Utah women's basketball player. It's Jenna Johnson who's going to join us. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
(51-33). Jenna Johnson attacking right side. Goes one-on-one with Byers. Lays it up and in. Plus the foul.
Calling an audible here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We do love a good Jenna Johnson highlight and one layup from a 92-65 win over Cincinnati for Utah women's basketball, courtesy of the Utah Sports Radio Network. Tyson Ewing on that call. Jenna Johnson had 7 points in the win. Practice is going long, okay? Nothing against Jenna Johnson, nothing against Utah women's basketball. They got work to do, so we're just going to have to punt on the Jenna Johnson interview because she's still doing the main thing. Keep the main thing, and get better at basketball. Eventually we'll have a chance to talk to her, we hope. I was going to ask her questions about Utah winters versus Minnesota winters because she's from Minnesota. And I at one time was also from Minnesota. I moved to Utah from Minnesota when I was 9. That was going to be the bridge, James. I was going to build that bridge, the Minnesota bridge. So we'll get Jenna eventually. Take this opportunity. We started the show today talking about Utah men's basketball and their search for a head coach. The poll question, I'll give you some updated results here. Alex Jensen as the replacement or bust was one of the poll question answers I gave. That's 75% of the respondents are saying they would rather have Alex Jensen than an assistant coach from a great program, than a rising young head coach, and 6.4% saying they would have other, with most of those others being give me Andre Miller. And if you can get Andre Miller or Alex Jensen, I think that's great. If you can get Alex and Andre, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah,
if I'm Mark Harlan,
my other is both.
Yeah, if I'm Mark Harlan, I'm like, give me both. Like, he made a point of talking about the willingness of Utah to invest in its basketball program in the official statement, in the release about Craig Smith's firing. There's 2 whole sentences near the end that say, hey, we are invested in this program. We are going to continue to invest in this program. We're going to build facilities. We're going to hire support staff. NIL opportunities are going to be there. If there's a faucet of money that gets turned back on by hiring alumni, then there's a lot of pressure to do that. You got to make it happen. I don't know what you're not going to give Alex Jensen some Kevin Young contract probably, right? You probably don't have to. He's an assistant coach, but so was Kevin Young. But this is a guy coming back to a place where he's emotionally invested. He was obviously a great player at the University of Utah. If you're Alex Jensen, do you want Andre Miller to be an assistant coach to you? Probably yes. The big question becomes, if you can get this across the finish line, if you can get an Alex Jensen, do you then have everything in place? Does he have the plan in place to get better players? No offense to any of the guys on the roster right now, but when you talk to a basketball insider, when you talk to a basketball expert, even when you're talking about the justification for separating Craig Smith from his duties, it's, well, he's really good at getting the most out of players that aren't quite as talented, but there's just not enough talent. And there's not a basketball program in the country that feels like they have enough talent. It's never enough. We're unsatisfied always in college sports. In college basketball, you always want 3 lottery picks on your team. You're not going to get that, okay? But if Alex Jensen or Andre Miller or Jared Calhoun or whoever it ends up being, if that person is in place, do they have the recruiting plan? Do they have the NIL support to then get big-time players that have all the other options in the world? You're not just going against BYU. You're not just going against Houston. You're not just going against Iowa State and Texas Tech and Colorado and your conference. You're now recruiting against every team in the country every year and every 6 months, really. And you're also recruiting against the G League. You're also recruiting against overseas opportunities. You're recruiting against every basketball entity on planet Earth.
Which there's a lot of.
There's so many.
It's not the same. It's a different challenge than what we talk about recruiting to football programs. Like college is the option.
That's right.
In football.
And in the NBA or in basketball, you have G League opportunities like I mentioned. You have I could go play in Europe. I could go play in Australia. I could go play in China. I could go
play in Argentina. They have basketball leagues everywhere.
And weirdly enough, the Middle East is getting involved. Those guys are throwing an absurd amount of money everywhere. And guess what? You're a young kid. You're an 18-year-old. And if you're good enough, you know that you really only have to commit to whatever for a year. If you're going to do this G League thing, well, that'll be my goal. That'll be my plan for the next 12 months. University of Utah, you're my plan for the next 12 months. Now, I think college sports and boosters and collectives are going to start demanding more commitment than that, making things more binding than that in order to justify these investments. But we're putting the cart ahead of the horse. Is Utah ready to step up to the plate in that way? Is there somebody whose name is on a building up there already who's like, you know what? We actually have a lot of this cash laying around, and we've just been hesitant to hand it over to the basketball program. But I will give it to Alex Jensen. I will give it to Andre Miller. I will give it to fill in the blank, whoever that is. Because in that case, you're like, well, how come you weren't willing to give it to Craig? And that
stuff's fickle, man.
These are all hypothetical things, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the booster, like this seems to have been a at least, partially booster driven firing in the first place, which means if you're going to do a booster driven firing, there's probably a booster driven hiring coming. And I'm totally fine with that because that's the modern environment of college sports. I'm fine with that as long as Mark Harlan's fine with it, as long as players are fine with it, because that's where it becomes problematic.
Well, as long as the boosters actually start investing into the NIL collective, in the Crimson Collective or whatever it is, there might be a new collective that's just running Utes if they're actually serious about this. As long as they're actually going to put their money where their mouths are, and not just to help pay the coach's salary, but to actually help pay some players through NIL, then I'm absolutely on board with a booster-driven hire.
Well,
but if they're only just talking like they're going to do that, and they don't actually do it to the extent that they're saying, then yeah, I'm gonna be disappointed.
Just imagine how difficult the job is up there right now. Okay, I do not envy anyone who's in the decision-making role at University of Utah right now, because you have to either field the call or make the phone call saying, all right, I need $5 million over the next couple of years to pay a buyout for Craig. Are you willing to help with that? You get the heavy sigh. All right, yeah, okay. And I'm going to need another $5 million in order to get Alex here. Oh, geez. All right. Okay, fine. And if we're going to go to all that trouble, I'm going to actually need another $5 million so that when Alex comes, he can put together a staff, and maybe we can even get Andre on that staff. Okay, geez. I can give you $2 million in that effort. Okay, so you can give me 2 of that. Great, thank you. So that's $12 million I'm asking for either this individual or this collection of individuals. Okay, but sorry, before I hang up, before I let you go, we also need to come up with like roughly $4 million per season to field a team capable of winning the Big 12 Conference. You guys cool with that?
But wait, there's more.
And that's where, if you're in oil country and a bunch of your alumni were like all have rigs in their front yard, it probably is a little bit easier to have these conversations. If you've got a billionaire who's showed everyone, who's demonstrated his willingness, his eagerness to spend that money on improving sports on the Utah landscape by buying a hockey franchise, buying a basketball franchise, buying into a soccer franchise, and now also being like, I want BYU basketball to be really good, okay? Like, that phone call, still hard to make, I'm sure, but not as hard as being like, hey, I know you guys already, like, donated a bunch of money for this hospital. Can we also maybe pay some 18-year-old kids to come here? Like, that's unfortunately, or perhaps it is fortunate, because it's that quick of a fix.
That's the ask.
You just say, hey, I need some millions. And the going rate right now for elite college basketball players is kind of like the going rate for quarterbacks. Except you got to do it for 5 of them, or 3 of them, or 2.5 of them. That's, if you want to be back on top of your conference, which is not the Mountain West anymore, and it's not the Pac-12. You are in the Big 12 conference right now. So you have to compete not only with the G League, not only with overseas, not only with BYU, with Kansas, with Houston, with Texas Tech, those schools are making those phone calls. And those schools are making those phone calls. Houston and Kansas are making those phone calls for basketball first, before they're making them for football. So that's what you're up against. I'm not trying to paint a doom and gloom picture. I'm just trying to be a realist here. I believe Alex Jensen is the next head coach at the University of Utah. I want to see Alex Jensen come in and have a Deion Sanders level of impact on NIL donorship.
Literal buy-in
Just
from the boosters.
Like, I want there to be some person like my age or probably older who's been wildly successful in some entrepreneurial endeavor, who's just like, I loved Alex Jensen and his baggy shorts and his baggy T-shirt under his baggy jersey. I love him. I'm a believer. Here's a big check. Oh, my gosh, I loved Andre Miller. The greatest memory of my life was that Final Four run that this team put together. Majerus in the sweater. I love these guys. Here's a bunch of money. That's what I want to see. I don't know if that's what we get.
I wonder how willing, if you made the calls to the current NBA players who are currently making millions, Kyle Kuzma, making the most money out of the group, Pirtle, and DeLon Wright, who's still doing his thing. I wonder how willing, if they make the calls to them, like, how much do you want to donate to our program, man? We're bringing back, if they bring back Alex Jensen, and even more if they bring back Andre Miller, like, hey.
Well, Andre's really interesting because Andre played like 20 years in the NBA.
Yeah.
Right? It was 18 seasons?
It's something close to that, yeah.
Andre's just like, well, I mean, I could donate.
Yeah, and he had too. But I wonder, like, these guys, the Kuzes, the DeLon Wrights, the Jakob Pertles that were on the last NCAA tournament team for the Running Utes, I wonder how willing they would be to open up their wallets a little bit here.
That's a good question. That's actually a really fascinating question because, first of all, they're in their 20s, and that does not feel like the time of life where you're, like, doing your legacy donations.
Yeah,
right?
True. But they have, I mean, especially Kuz, he's made the most money out of all of them.
Making like $28 million bucks.
You got to think he's got some money left over that he could make some kind of donation right now if he wanted to.
I'll say this.
If he was convinced to.
If I were a recent athlete at the University of Utah and someone called me asking for money, I'd be like, kick rocks. I did not have anybody paying my way. No one gave me $500,000.
That could be their mindset.
That's how I would feel. And, like, it would take until I was much further established, much further removed. And then I might be like, you know what? Yeah, let's do this.
It's possible that could be their mindset. I mean,
they're probably less petty and greedy than me. But I would just be like, what are you talking about? I'm Kyle Kuzma. I was underutilized effectively there.
Yeah, he's been a much better NBA player than he was in college. And he wasn't, it's not like he was awful in college. He was obviously really good. He was a first-round pick. But his ceiling as an NBA player is much higher than it was as a college player.
Part of the reason for that is because at Utah he had to be the number one option.
Yeah.
And in the NBA, his best role is to not be a number one option.
Right.
So he probably understands that better than we do. By the way, he just got engaged. Did you see this?
I missed it.
Kyle Kuzma, he did a fireworks show proposal. Big deal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's actually, if I'm not mistaken, he's recently engaged to someone who's actually quite famous. Her name is Winnie Harlow, and she is. Oh yeah. She's a model who has that pigmentation. What's it called? Where you lose the skin pigment, where you like the melanin leaves from your skin.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the term.
I should have been prepared with that term on the tip of my tongue before I told you this story.
Vitiligo?
Yeah, vitiligo.
Vitiligo?
Yeah. She's like she's a model. She's like an elite print model. I think that's who we got engaged to.
Congratulations, Kuz.
Good job, Kuz.
And maybe Kuz, if you're listening,
Kuz,
if you want to be on the show to actually answer our question, how willing you might be to donate to the program.
He's probably like, hey, I got a wedding to pay for.
Yeah.
So
he's gonna be calling Mark Harmon. Hey, how much do you want to pay for my wedding? How much do you want to pay towards the wedding?
If you're an NBA player, like, you don't get to go to your father-in-law and be like, hey, you're gonna pay for this wedding, right? You can't do that. So Anyway.
Or the bride's family. Yeah, wait, that's traditionally who pays for it, right? So you guys are on board?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All right. We'll wrap up the Sean O'Connell Show next with some trivia for Pantera tickets and a little crosstalk with Spence. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Real quick topical trivia, 877-353-0700 for Pantera tickets as they come to the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. J.J. Watt made a bet with Burnley FC's goalkeeper. If he can not concede a goal for the rest of the season, J.J. Watt will come out of retirement and play for this man's favorite team, the Cincinnati Bengals. How many clean sheets has this man, Mr. Trafford, has he put together since the bet was made? How many blank slates, clean sheets, shutouts? What are the other terms I could throw out there to upset soccer fans? How many zeros has this man hung on the opposition since he made that bet with J.J. Watt? 877-353-0700. Time for Crosstalk, brought to you by Advanced Window Products. If you need new windows, buy direct from the Utah manufacturer, Advanced Window Products. AdvancedWindows.com, 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Spence Checketts and The Drive are next. He's here in studio. Can you believe it? Hey.
The Sean O'Connell Show, your home for soccer talk.
Yes.
Here in the market. No, I don't know the answer to it at all.
You do know, of course, that Burnley was recently relegated. They're in championship instead of premiership. Of course, we knew
Look at you.
Yeah. Oof. Tough going for Burnley.
I'm wildly impressed, and I would imagine you've been previewing tomorrow's CONCACAF matchup with RSL and Herediano.
Yes, naturally.
Have you landed on a different formation you'd like to see the team play, or are you still going to stick with the flying V?
You know, I saw something. I was watching some YouTube. They have one called the Dallas Star, where they just go in like a 5-pointed star formation on the attack.
You like that one?
I like that one.
Okay. All right. Yeah, a little footy on the program today. I like it. just know that if you wade into the waters of talking soccer on air, you'll have soccer fans who all they do is complain that nobody ever talks about them, complain that you're talking about them because you don't know what you're talking about. They might be the worst types of sports fans.
I experienced that exact thing in the Bay Area when I was working radio with hockey fans.
Okay, yeah.
I mispronounced Vezina Trophy once. And was just lambasted aggressively. Emails coming into the station, my Twitter account. Like, I'm surprised they didn't look up my address and try to dox me.
Yeah, I do not live online the way I did once upon a time. It's just better that way for everybody, mostly myself. But for years, I would get messages from soccer fans like, why aren't you talking more RSL? With your background, you could help provide some context for the club. And so I get back on air here, and, they change gears, and Bill's no longer calling the games, and I still have RSL content on the show. And some of the very same fans are messaging me, complaining about questions I asked. Like when everything went down with Deloy, Deloy came on my radio show the very afternoon that he went on Radio from Hell in the morning because, the plan was to have Deloy apologize and see if we could salvage something. And all I did for weeks was just get messages and, DMs messages about my line of questioning. And, the gentle replies, you do realize he owns this radio station, right? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, bring him on and, hold his feet to the fire? So it's an interesting group, to say the least. I am a convert. I was not baptized as a child, but I am a soccer convert. And still, the soccer fans that you hear from, most of them are just, man.
They're still proselyting to me to.
I can send a couple of guys over, knock on the door with a book, Soccer for Dummies.
Soccer book. Yeah, that would get. I would rather hear from the real missionaries, if we're being honest. So
okay. Well, both messages that will change your life, Sean. I'll leave it at that.
That can be arranged too, OC.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, please. I've never had an address anywhere where that doesn't happen because I'm LDS adjacent living here.
You have to be in some sense. You have to understand culturally how to exist in the place.
But I one of the things that I appreciate most about living here is how many folks are so optimistic that they will be the ones that get me after 30-something years of living in Utah.
Oh, for sure.
I know I just met you, but let me convince you of the thing that your best friend has tried, every girlfriend you ever had has tried, your wife has tried.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be the one to convince you. I do appreciate that level of optimism.
I don't know this for sure, but my guess is my immediate and extended family have a running pool, and whoever actually gets the job done over here will just cash in the money. Over the course of the past 20 years, have you talked to Spence? Invite him to church next time, So, look, all due respect, got a lot of love for the community. And, it's interesting to, whenever this whole, topic comes up of a fan base chanting what Arizona did to BYU.
I hate that more than most LDS people.
Yeah, it's just it's so lowbrow and so low class. And look, I have an experience of moving back east when I was 11 years old from Salt Lake City as a Mormon kid. 6 kids in the family, LDS family, and we moved into a town where now the church back there has grown a little bit. But when we moved there, my sister and I were 2 of the 3 LDS kids in our elementary/middle school. And I can recall this was 1990, I can recall the way kids would react to me because they thought it was so weird that I was Mormon, because there weren't a lot back there. And you really are treated like an outcast. You're treated differently. They're asking you questions that they get fed from their parents that you're not equipped to handle as an 11-year-old. Like, how many wives does your dad have? I'm like, I think only one. Like, why are you asking me? Like, I don't know
Does he
about.
have a second family? He does travel a lot. Oh, dang it.
Yeah, they're putting this stuff in your head. And I'm processing childhood trauma as I speak, I guess, here. But I didn't have any frame of reference for what church history was about polygamy. So I'm 11 years old in the Northeast, having these other 11-year-olds say, my dad says your dad has a bunch of wives. I'm like, well, that's not my understanding of the situation.
Yeah.
I've only known the one. And so I do think a lot of it still, even though that's 30 years ago now, 30 plus years ago, there's still a big portion of society that views Mormonism through a prism of being very unfamiliar with it, and therefore you just fear what you don't know. And it's easy to crack on religious people. They're easy targets, but the fact of the matter is most of the members of the community are nice people that try to do the best they can to help each other out. And I just feel like there is a double standard that exists where multiple times a year, football, basketball, we hear these fan bases chanting these derogatory terms towards LDS people. And I hate to be this guy. If it was a different group as front-facing as it has been towards LDS people, I think you would see more of an outcry from a larger portion of people.
You're absolutely 100% right. It's completely unacceptable. And I know that there's public apologies and things like that come, but just like you gotta stop it from happening in the first place.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be a cultural correction at Arizona or wherever else. It's wild, Arizona is like the second most populous Mormon state besides Utah, which is wild that you can get away with it down there and not get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And by the way, kids, that's not the right way to handle your problems. Sometimes it is.
I was going to say, it's not the right way all the time.
Sometimes it is. And yeah, it's funny. I probably get more bothered by it than a lot of my friends who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because I'm just like, they can't say that because it's just like pure hate speech.
Right.
But no one's doing anything about it.
I think culturally, the church, I think members of the church become kind of immune to it. We talk about this.
Good to have a thick skin.
We talk about this like inferiority complex that exists in the state and this persecution complex that exists with LDS people. Well, it exists with LDS people because they were literally kicked out of their homes multiple times as they were crossing the country. And let's not get into all the reasons why. Okay, let's just be nice today. And then ultimately, the leader of your church is killed. And, you're just trying to find a place to live. And yes, are there some uncomfortable elements of the whole thing? Yes, there is. Okay.
Yeah, I just finished watching American Primeval.
Oh, Woof. Goodness gracious. Right.
Woof.
Right.
Woof.
And well done show, by the way. And let's not get into all the inaccuracies and falsehoods. It was a docudrama. Okay. Everybody calm down. We're good.
Historical fiction. Yes.
But this is a group of people, and I can speak to it because I experienced it as a young person. You are used to be treating like you are different because, quite frankly, you are. And that's not necessarily bad, but people that don't know exactly all the fabrics of the community fear it. And then the explosion of LDS and popular culture over the past 9-10 years.
It's never flattering, though.
No, and that's the problem.
And it's never an accurate picture of what living in like a regular Mormon neighborhood
no,
actually is.
Not at all. But you watch Real Housewives of Salt Lake, or you watch whatever the hell the Hulu thing is, and you're like, wait, these people are weird, right?
Yeah. Then you feel like you're more justified in saying things like that are completely unacceptable to say. I get it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's funny because your experience going back east, I had the exact opposite. Moving here as a Catholic kid, moving here to Sandy, and back then Sandy was like 99% probably.
Sure, yeah.
And people were just like, "Oh, whoa,
look at this one.
What are you guys?
What's the deal, huh?"
But I did not have a negative experience.
Yeah.
It was great.
Most people don't. If you live amongst them, you don't. If you're just watching reality television or believing some Reddit thread, then you're gonna lean into the hate element. It's just too bad.
All right, stay tuned for more Mormon talk.
I don't think we're going to lean into this today on the show, but I will touch on it, though. We're going to talk mostly about the situation with Utah basketball and a big game in pro basketball tonight. So we'll get to it.
39.5 is the over-under I set for Luka, and I'm taking the over.
Close the show.
Sean O'Connell Show, we're done. Stay tuned for The Drive. ESPN 700, 92 FM.